And we are live for week 4. We are on Ireland time this morning. We got a very interesting football game kicking off in less than an hour. Not going to be the exactly normal Sunday morning live because we're on Ireland time and we got to lock in the Ireland start sits. And there was just breaking news in this game in Ireland between the Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jaylen Warren is out of this game. This was not expected news. It was actually reported he was going to play yesterday. This is why you got to be locked in when we have these overseas games. I can't tell you how many people we're going to see on this live stream today asking Jaylen Warren start-sit questions after this game has already completed. So we're locked in, and we got definitely some tough start-sit decisions here early on this Sunday morning. Week 4, man, this is the time of the season where we can really get dialed in. We have enough information now from the first 3 weeks to really adjust rankings and expectations properly. If you guys are already in the live stream and you're on Ireland time with me this morning, guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be talking in depth about this Vikings Steelers game, a little bit more so, than I would usually do for one game this early in the live. So we're going to get to everything about this game. I'm going to prioritize the Ireland time start-sit decisions as well. I'm going to prioritize the rough Kenneth Gainwell start-sits that I know are coming. I got some tough Kenneth Gainwell start-sits myself. Okay. Week 4 is here, man. It is the best day of the week, and we got a game kicking off very, very soon. So Kenneth Gainwell suddenly vaults into the fantasy conversation. Definitely not a guy that you were going to be comfortable starting with Jaylen Warren in. He's had a pretty clear role in this offense, though. Last week, he had 9.6 points, scored a touchdown, only 16 rushing yards, though, 1 catch, 10 yards. He actually played his lowest snap percentage of the season. Jaylen Warren, I believe, played his highest snap percentage of the season last week. Yeah, 80% of the snaps for Jaylen Warren last week against a pretty bad Patriots defense. Finishes with 13 points, has 5 catches for 34 yards. Kenneth Gainwell is going to step into all of that passing work that Jaylen Warren's been getting. He is the direct replacement for Jaylen Warren, and he was already the RB2 on the team. And the big question here is how much are these other running backs going to mix in? Trey Sermon and Caleb Johnson. We said our prayers, rest in peace to Caleb Johnson last live stream. I think he has 2 total touches so far this season. He had that horrible mistake on the kickoff. He has negative fantasy points this season. Yeah, he's played 4 total snaps. He's run 2 total routes. He has 2 total carries, and he has negative total yards. And I'm not writing off Caleb Johnson like long term. This is an extremely small sample size. It is shocking to me how high the panic meter is for so many people out there with so many of the rookies right now. You do have to remember that the NFL is a small sample size sport. We've seen 3 games from every player so far this season. We can't be full panic yet on a lot of these guys. And Caleb Johnson's obviously not startable here in this game. Trey Sermon's probably going to play ahead of him. But man, if there was a spot to get Caleb Johnson some work, this would be it. And in my opinion, Caleb Johnson's the most talented running back the Steelers have. I still do believe that. But definitely not confident in his workload here today. So Kenneth Gainwell, he's startable in a lot of spots. I think one of the most difficult start-sit decisions of this Sunday morning on Ireland time is Kenneth Gainwell versus some of these other fringe running backs. For me, what start-sit I'm going to have to decide between on all my teams, Kenneth Gainwell or Trevion Henderson. We got Gainwell and Henderson projected right next to each other now in the Walter Picks app. Exactly 10.9 points each. Man, I mean, it's really a rough spot for Trevion Henderson right now. I'm not benching him, though, for Kenneth Gainwell. I can't get myself to do it. I cannot get myself to bench my 3rd or 4th round fantasy draft pick for Kenneth Gainwell here in week 4. There's at least a story we can tell about Henderson leading the Patriots backfield in touches today. He looks like the worst running back among the Pats backfield efficiency-wise, but he's the only one that hasn't fumbled. So there's definitely a real shot we see a larger role for Henderson. It's a better matchup for Trevion Henderson, too. This is not a great matchup for the Steelers here, guys. I don't understand how the Vikings are only 2.5-point favorites in this game. There's a few games this week. The spread just does not make sense to me. This is one of them. Guys, the Steelers barely beat the Patriots. The Patriots turned the ball over, was it 4 or 5 times? It might have been 5 times. Yeah, there was an interception and 4 fumbles. The Patriots turned the ball over 5 times and still almost beat the Steelers. Steelers offense did not look good versus a very weak Patriots defense last week. This is a much better Vikings defense. I would be really shocked if the Vikings lost this one on top of the Steelers being out without Jalen Warren, their top running back. Really surprised they're only 2.5-point favorites here. Is Carson Wentz better than J.J. McCarthy? I promise we're going to get to these Ireland time start sits just in a second. I'm going to prioritize these Steelers-Vikings start sits, I promise. Just want to talk through my thoughts on the game first, and then we'll get to some early start sits on the live. Then once the game starts, I'll start going game by game through the rest of the games, and then we'll get to thousands of start sit questions on this live. I do have another guest joining the Sunday morning live today as well. Yeah, someone I see in the TikTok live asking Kenneth Gainwell over Trevion Henderson. We're projecting him like less than a point over Trevion Henderson, the Walter Picks app. I cannot get myself to start Kenneth Gainwell over Trevion Henderson. I will not do it. In my soul, I can't do it. I can't do it. I think it's a reasonable decision to make. I would argue Kenneth Gainwell's floor is probably higher than Trevion Henderson. You know, if you wanted to tell me Kenneth Gainwell is going to touch the ball more than Henderson today, I think that's somewhat reasonable of a take. But the ceiling's got to be higher for Trevion Henderson still. It's a better matchup for Henderson as well, and there's at least some momentum building for a larger workload for Henderson. But getting to this Carson Wentz narrative, I don't think many people are going to be starting Carson Wentz today. I think I did see an early start sit question. Yeah, here, start Carson Wentz over Penix. Is that dumb? I don't think that's dumb. I mean, it's pretty close. Honestly, I think they're in a similar tier here. I'll pull up the QB ranks. Let me pull up the QB ranks on both live streams here as we get going on Ireland time this morning. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. Seriously, it is the best day of the week, and there's a lot to talk through today. That's why we're starting this live stream 30 minutes earlier than usual, because we're on Ireland time. We're locked in. All right, let's do this comparison quick between Wentz. I want to actually just compare Wentz and McCarthy real quick. Let's just compare their stats. We saw one game from Wentz. Last week's game was a complete joke, though, for the Vikings. This game was over at the end of the first quarter. This game was over between the Vikings and the Bengals. And a lot of that had to do with this Vikings defense. Again, I don't know how the Vikings are only 2.5-point favorites against the Steelers this week, but Wentz did not play bad. 8.6 yards per attempt. He completed 70% of his passes through 2 touchdowns. He really didn't have to do much. Good, easy matchup. Guys, this Steelers defense has been bad, though. Really bad. They ranked 3rd worst in the NFL in points allowed to QBs. Fields went for 30 points in week 1 in that crazy revenge game. We have not seen Aaron Rodgers play well, by the way. We really haven't seen him play well outside of this revenge game that he was all hyped up for in week 1. Threw 4 touchdowns in that game. Sam Darnold went for 18 points in week 2, and then Drake May had 20 points last week. So we haven't seen a QB go under 17.5 points. That makes Carson Wentz definitely viable here. Michael Penix obviously coming off a really, really brutal game as well. Wentz ends up finishing last week with 15 points. It's probably about his floor in this game, assuming this game's close. Again, that game last week for the Vikings, it was pretty much over at the end of the first quarter, early second quarter. I mean, you rarely see that in the NFL. Better completion percentage for Carson Wentz last week. Better yards per attempt for Carson Wentz. Better in the touchdown area too. He's going to have 2 good matchups here, so it might be a little misleading. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see J.J. McCarthy miss a decent amount more time. Amount of time still as Wentz fills in the shoes maybe a little bit better than J.J. McCarthy. All right, let's go to this comparison here. Yeah, I don't think it's dumb at all. I would actually do this. I would go Wentz over Penix. This Steelers defense, guys, has not been good at all. All right, let's pull up my other thoughts quickly on this game, and then we will get to tons of Ireland time start-sit decisions. All right, let's get to the Jordan Addison return, and then I'll talk through just what Steelers and Vikings players, both sides, I think, are startable, and then my favorite player prop for the game today, Jordan Mason, over 82.5 rushing yards. I'll talk through that. here as well. So Jordan Addison's back. Not really a guy I feel great starting here in week 4, but he's definitely startable. We have him projected as wide receiver 31. I'll go back over to the wide receiver ranks here. Once again this week, I think like the wide receiver start sits by far the toughest start sits of the week. The wide receiver position is in just complete turmoil, it feels like. From like wide receiver like 10 through 30, you can debate up and down that list all day long. It's going to be some difficult start sits on the live today. And Jordan Addison is startable in this game. Again, the Steelers defense has not been good. Their run defense has been worse than their pass defense. That's part of the reason I'm very in on Jordan Mason in this game. And you got to remember the context from last week when we look at these stats. And this is one of the things that can really get lost over the course of the season when you look back at some of the stats is the context of the games that these stats occurred in. Last week, we'll look at Jordan Mason. It looks like his rush share, his snap share, like wasn't that great. Well, the game was over in the second quarter. He still had 116 rushing yards against the Bengals last week, and he didn't play in the fourth quarter. Jordan Mason was on track to have like a Jonathan Taylor-like role before the game was over. We could see a huge workload for Jordan Mason in games that are competitive. And this game should be competitive enough, at least more competitive than that Bengals game last week. But guys, Jordan Addison, last season, let's just take a quick peek back at last season for Jordan Addison. He has a really high weekly ceiling. We saw multiple 30-point games from Jordan Addison last season. He's got a real ceiling in this spot today versus the Steelers. So he's definitely startable. Probably going to be some difficult start sits here with Jordan Addison. We saw Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp both go over 15 points. Garrett Wilson had 22 points. Last week, the Patriots offense, none of these receivers were startable for the Patriots. There's not a startable Patriots player outside of Drake May and Hunter Henry right now. Hunter Henry did have a big game here, but yeah, they're mixing in like 5-6 different receivers right now, the Patriots. I'd prefer to bench Jordan Addison in his first game back, though. And I do think the Vikings win this one. I think they're going to be able to lean on the run a lot. Going to Jordan Mason here for a second, the other Jordan for the Vikings. Absolute must start here in this spot. So I'll jump over to the running back ranks here on both live streams. But if you have Jordan Mason, I don't know how you're benching him in this game. We have Jordan Mason right now. He's ranked as running back 8 left on the week. I think you could argue him above Hampton, above Bucky Irving, who are both in great spots, in great roles this week as well. I mean, he had a really good matchup last week, finished as running back 7, 23.6 points. But again, he didn't really play in the fourth quarter, didn't really need to play much even in the second half. I mean, this game was over before it started against the Bengals. Still ended up playing 60% of the snaps. He got only 51% of the carries, though. Still had 16 carries. Went for 116 and 2 touchdowns. Didn't have a catch because this game was not competitive. They didn't have to throw it very much. But he did run the most routes out of the backfield. Jordan Mason, I think, is in a very sneaky workhorse role right now. When you look back at the stats from last week, it doesn't seem like it. But again, the game got out of hand really fast. So really high floor, really high ceiling, I think, for Jordan Mason here in this game in Ireland versus the Steelers. TJ Hawkinson's definitely startable here as well. And then on the Steelers side, like which of these guys can you really start? I mean, none of these guys are must starts on the Steelers. Not a single Steelers player is a must start player. I don't want anything to do with the tight ends. They still have 2 tight ends running a bunch of routes. Kenneth Gainwell and DK Metcalf probably going to be the guys asked about the most. Gainwell is startable. I was just saying Gainwell versus Trevion Henderson. I think that's a really tough choice. I refuse to go Gainwell personally in that decision. I have to make that choice in one of my high stakes fantasy leagues. I'm rolling with Trevion Henderson. And you guys know I'm getting crushed by Trevion Henderson this season. Probably not a bigger L I've taken across all my leagues so far this season than Trevion Henderson. I think his ceiling is higher than Gainwell here this week, though. And I think Gainwell's floor is arguably a little bit safer. There's no Jaylen Warren today. Again, if you're tuning in on Ireland time this morning, shout out to you because you are multiple steps ahead of the rest of your league. And you got to get Jaylen Warren out of your lineups. He's out. A surprise inactive here for Jaylen Warren, which thrusts Kenneth Gainwell into the fantasy conversation. I just traded away Kenneth Gainwell too in the 32 creator league. I somehow have Jonathan Taylor and Bijan Robinson on my 32-person fantasy league. So I'm not sweating giving up Kenneth Gainwell there in that league. All right, we're going to get to Jaylen Warren is out today. Yes, Corey. Good morning. We're on Ireland time. Jaylen Warren is out. He's out. This is why you wake up early before these games, because there's always surprise news like this. I won't be surprised when we have more surprise news later in the live stream about some of the guys that are questionable today. All right, people asking for the tight end ranks. I got you with the tight end ranks. After wide receivers, honestly, I think tight ends might be the next toughest position, start sit wise. This week, hey Sam, it's a rough week. Pick 2. Kenneth Gainwell, Shakir, Jennings, Dobbs, T, Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, or Alec. Yeah, T. Higgins got to be one of the most difficult start sits this week as well. I think you go Jawan Jennings here. Let's go Dobbs versus Gainwell too. I want this Packers passing attack badly today in my lineups. It's very difficult to say who it's going to be. Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, Tucker Kraft. At least one of these guys is going to absolutely explode today, though. So I'm willing to throw darts at all of them. And I definitely want to be starting Jordan Love today, too. Let's do Romeo Dobbs versus Kenneth Gainwell. Definitely a really tough one. The Walter Picks app has Romeo Dobbs just a bit ahead. The ceiling's higher for Dobbs. I agree. I'm going Dobbs over Gainwell here. And I'm going Jawan Jennings over Kenneth Gainwell as well. I want to bench T. Higgins. I want to bench Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt. I feel a little bit vindicated about my Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt stance from before the season. He's not an easy guy to start right now. He's in a 5-way backfield. It's a 5-way backfield, even without Austin Eckler. A 5-way backfield with a rushing QB. He's not catching many passes. Chris Rodriguez comes off the bench. He's a healthy scratch the first 2 games. Comes off the bench and is the leading running back and the goal line running back for the Commanders. If Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt doesn't score a touchdown, he's going under 10 fantasy points. Like, he just doesn't have a great role for fantasy football. Not this workhorse role that you need. And we almost never see 7th round rookie draft picks have a workhorse role. Like, almost never historically does that happen. The hit rate on the 7th round rookie running backs in fantasy is extremely low, like under 10%, under 5% of the time do we see these guys actually make a huge impact in fantasy. And Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, he looks pretty good. But yeah, you're going to need, like, efficiency-wise, he looks pretty good, but you're going to need touchdowns from him to really hit in fantasy football. So yeah, Jaylen Warren is out today. Shout out to you for being up on Ireland time to take advantage of that news. I can't tell you how many people, I promise you, we're going to see people later in this live stream asking, do I start Jaylen Warren or do I start Trevion Henderson? Someone's going to be asking that. I guarantee it. And we're going to say you weren't up on Ireland time. You know, that's just an L. It's an L for you. Hopefully all of us get to play somebody with Jaylen Warren in their lineups today. All right, we got a question here from KB. I'm gonna really focus in on the Ireland time start sit questions. You know, this is why I woke up extra early today, why I started the live stream an extra 30 minutes early today, because there's a game kicking off in about 30 minutes. And there's some pretty difficult start sits this week, and definitely involving this game, especially when it comes to Kenneth Gainwell, DK Metcalf. I throw in that list as a tough start sit decision here as well. And then Jordan Addison, I think, is a pretty difficult start sit. Obviously, we're starting Justin Jefferson. Haven't even mentioned him. Obviously, we're starting Jordan Mason. He's the favorite player prop I have in this game, over 82.5 rushing yards. I'm also pretty surprised the Vikings are only 2.5-point favorites. I'm on them in this game too. And let's get to more games after this game starts. Talking through the rest of the games this week. There's some pretty surprising spreads out there, in my opinion, this week. I think some exploitable ones here as well. All right, Kenneth Gainwell or Chase Brown? I think you got to go Chase Brown here. Chase Brown, like, in terms of guys with the panic meter across the league, people's panic meter on Chase Brown is about as high as it gets, like a 10 out of 10 panic meter for most people on Chase Brown. And I get it. There's no Joe Burrow anymore. The whole reason we were drafting Chase Brown, right? Workhorse role in a really good offense with a really good quarterback. Well, the last 2 things might not be true anymore. Obviously, no elite quarterback. I still have some faith in Jake Brown, and we'll get to that when I talk through this game. But the offense is not going to score as much. And Chase Brown has been arguably the least efficient running back in the entire NFL. He's averaging 2 yards per carry. Guys, last week he had 0.3 yards per carry. It is hard to be worse than this with the type of volume he's seeing. He's averaging over 15 carries a game, and he's at 2 yards per carry. But not all of this is Chase Brown's fault, to be clear. Chase Brown isn't like this epic talent. But he's also, I think, dead last in the NFL in terms of yards before first contact. He's getting negative yards before first contact. Like, him and Ashton Genty getting absolutely no help from their offensive lines right now. And I think that will regress at least a little bit. But he's also averaging like barely over 5 yards per reception. He's 70th among running backs. In yards per carry, he's 36th. In yards per reception. Still, though, I think you kind of have to play him over Gainwell. He did have 4 catches last week, up to a 19% target share. That was his highest of the season. The Broncos aren't the worst matchup for running backs. They're obviously really, really good against the receivers. They did play Jonathan Taylor in one game, so that's kind of skewing it a little bit. They allowed 6 catches last week to Amari Hampton. Like, Chase Brown has a decent floor catching this week. I think I would go Chase Brown still over Kenneth Gainwell. And I don't think this Pittsburgh Steelers backfield is like a lock to give, 15 to 20 touches to Kenneth Gainwell. There's definitely a chance Trey Sermon and or third-round pick Caleb Johnson mixes in a bit more than people expect today as well. And there's just no way Chase Brown's role changes, this week. His role is definitely safer than Gainwell's too. And then Devontae Smith or Trey Tucker, full PPR. Yeah, you got to go Devontae Smith over Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker's like a boom-bust option. Obviously, the boom came last week. The booms are going to come with Geno Smith. He meshes well with Geno Smith. I'm still going Devontae Smith there, though. Hey, Sam, annual member for Walter Picks. Shout out to you, man. Yeah, the best way you guys could possibly support me, could possibly support the entire Walter Picks brand, is doing the Walter Picks subscription in the Walter Picks app. It's also the best way that you can give yourself a chance to win your fantasy league and to win the player props that you're researching and placing. There's also a free 7-day trial for the subscription if you haven't tried it before. Shout out to you, though, for being a Walter Picks subscriber. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. Seriously, if you're on Ireland time with me this morning, appreciate you. Look forward to these lives all week. Is it okay to stack Ladd and Johnson this week, or should I squeeze Golden in flex? No, it's totally fine to stack Ladd and Johnson this week. I honestly think it's a pretty high floor move. At least one of these guys is going over 15 points, and they could easily combine for 40 plus. I'm expecting a bunch of very difficult Quentin Johnson start sits. I'm ready for them, though. I'm ready for them. All right. I'm going to prioritize, guys, the Ireland time start sit. So if you have an Ireland time start sit in the Steelers versus Vikings game, send it in the chat. Send it in the chat. I do think the Vikings take this one. We got a Hawkinson question here. Let me pull this up. Hawkinson or Bill? If this is Bill Krosky Merritt, oh gosh, I think I go Hawkinson over Bill Krosky Merritt. Do I start Gainwell over Pearsall in the flex? Because Pearsall might not play. No, Pearsall's playing. Unless there's a Jaylen Warren-like situation here, where it was reported yesterday Jaylen Warren's playing. It was reported this morning he's not playing. That could happen for Pearsall, but yesterday it was reported both Pearsall and Jawan Jennings expected to play. I'm absolutely not benching Pearsall for Kenneth Gainwell. Absolutely not. Gainwell or DeAndre Swift, backup running back RJ Harvey if Swift doesn't play. Yeah, Swift's probably going to play here as well, so I'm not too worried about the backup situation. I actually think RJ Harvey, like a pretty interesting sleeper this week. Really good matchup there versus the Bengals. His role, at least the role for Tyler Bidet, decreased a lot. He barely played last week. That's definitely a huge bump to both RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, and they're both in a really good matchup. I don't think you can really start Harvey over either of these guys, though, with the role that he's had. I'm just going to toss him into the start sit, though, just in case. He's not too far off, honestly. Yeah, you got to go Swift over Gainwell. Let me hop over back to the running back ranks here and talk through Kenneth Gainwell a bit more. I did not expect here on Ireland time this morning to be grinding through Kenneth Gainwell start sits, but here we are. This is the NFL. This is how it goes when there's late injury news like this, and when there's a running back who's going to be started. Like, he's going to be the starting running back in this game. Kenneth Gainwell hasn't been bad this season. He doesn't have a game over 10 points yet. His efficiency has actually been worse than I realized here. Looking at the efficiencies here, this is on, as a backup running back, usually your efficiency should be boosted by a small sample size. 3.4 yards per carry, that's 48th in the NFL. 4.3 yards per reception, this is even worse than Chase Brown that we were just looking at. 43rd in the NFL. Man, it's tough for me to get too excited here about Kenneth Gainwell. It's not like it's a great matchup either versus the Vikings. This Vikings defense has been really, really good this season. Chase Brown had 6 points, 3 rushing yards for Chase Brown last week. I mean, this Bengals offense in offensive line is just atrocious. 10 carries for 3 yards. Yikes. Bijan and Tyler Algier both had good games, but DeAndre Swift went under 10 points. Chase Brown went under 10 points. I mean, we're probably looking at more of a situation like this for Kenneth Gainwell, more similar to DeAndre Swift and Chase Brown than Bijan and Tyler Algier. I'd prefer to bench Kenneth Gainwell if I can. I'm not thrusting in my starting lineup. I think the line for me is Trevion Henderson. We have him ranked just ahead of Henderson in the Walter Picks app right now, but my line is right there. I'm starting Henderson over Kenneth Gainwell. I'd start Kenneth Gainwell over guys like Jerome Ford. I'd start him over Nick Chubb, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, RJ Harvey, Rico Dowdle, Ramondre Stevenson, those types. But I'm not starting him over Henderson. I'm not starting him over Etienne or Pollard or Montgomery. I'm not starting him over Chase Brown. I'm not starting him over a bunch of the receivers this week. I think like Dontavian Wicks even, I'd probably start. Shout out from Amsterdam. Yeah, shout out Julian from Amsterdam. We're on Ireland time this morning, so probably easy for you here on Amsterdam time. Walter, my man, it's been a while. Had Jalen Warren, but with him out, Worthy or Jameson in my flex, full PPR. Jackson, shout out to you, man. It's a classic mistake. Do not worry about it. My name is not Walter. My name is Sam. Walter is the machine learning model I help build that powers all the insights on the Walter Picks app alongside our entire projections team, which I am a part of as well. And one of the reasons the Walter Picks app is really unmatched is we're updating projections faster than any platform and any company you're going to find out there. Like we updated for this Jalen Warren news within 2 minutes. So we already have Kenneth Gainwell's projection here in the app. We already have Jalen Warren projected out. If you have your push notifications on in the Walter Picks app, you were already alerted that you got to go find another solution for your Jalen Warren slot. And so yeah, Worthy versus Jameson Williams. This is a rough start sit decision to have to make. I don't know how you start either of these guys and feel like great about it. This week, we have Worthy projected over Jameson Williams. I really think you kind of have to bench Xavier Worthy in like almost all spots. I'm not convinced he's back to this like full role, like he's being projected to get. He gets hurt after 3 snaps in week 1. Already a smaller receiver. He's playing with a sling on his arm. I think like a real risk that he's a decoy today. His over-under's at 4.5 receptions in this game, though. He projects better than Jameson Williams, who's in his own right, like barely startable here in week 4. I honestly personally would go Jameson Williams here, though, over Xavier Worthy. I would much prefer to bench Xavier Worthy in his first game back. I want to see the Xavier Worthy role before starting him in fantasy. At least we know Jameson Williams is fully healthy. Again, going to prioritize the Ireland time start sit questions here. We got a game kicking off in 25 minutes. We got a Jonnu Smith start sit here in the YouTube live. Guys, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. If you're watching live on TikTok, smash the follow button. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit the like button. And if you're watching live on TikTok, I'm telling you, better viewing experience on the YouTube live. Come to the YouTube live. Link is right in the TikTok bio. I can share screen. I see a TikTok comment. Is anyone starting Kenneth Gainwell today? There's people starting Kenneth Gainwell for sure. I'm not really recommending it. I think he is like a fringe flex play. Again, my line for him is Trevion Henderson. I'm starting Henderson over him. Then I would start Gainwell over guys like Isaiah Pacheco and like the backup running backs, Jerome Ford. Those are the guys that I would start over Kenneth Gainwell over. Evan Ingram versus Jonnu Smith. Just a gross start sit question here. I think you go Jonnu Smith. He was questionable for this game as well with a hip injury. He is going to be playing. Revenge game last week versus the Pats, only 5 points. He does have at least 3 catches in every game. I mean, you can't start Evan Ingram, man. I mean, it's not a bad matchup for Ingram. He doesn't have a game over 5.1 points. He's been hurt the whole season with multiple different injuries as well. And even in the games before the injuries, 34% of snaps, 43% of snaps. I think the second game he got hurt in, so that's maybe a little unfair. First game, he might have picked up an injury as well, but you can't start Evan Ingram right now. Just absolutely not. And Evan Ingram was on my do not draft list this year. That was definitely a W for me, even without the injuries. Evan Ingram's never been a touchdown scorer. He's always relied on just elite, massive amounts of volume to be valuable in fantasy, and he's just not going to get that on the Broncos. So yeah, I'd probably go with Jonnu Smith there over him. All right, let's get to some of these Kenneth Gainwell questions. Start 2. Kenneth Gainwell, Christian Kirk, DJ Moore, Travis Hunter, Troy Franklin, or Darnell Mooney. I'm not starting Gainwell here. I'd start like almost all these receivers over him. I think almost all of these receivers have a higher ceiling than Kenneth Gainwell. This is not a great matchup for Gainwell. The role for Gainwell could be good, but I don't think that's like a lock either. We've never seen Gainwell really be this like volume running back. He definitely is going to be the lead back for the Steelers in this game, but is he going to be the goal line back over Trey Sermon, over Caleb Johnson? I don't think that's a guarantee. He's also been really inefficient this season. So yeah, I think I'd lean towards these receivers personally. I would start DJ Moore over him pretty easily. I'm not sure the projections are going to agree with that. Travis Hunter is a really difficult start. Right now, I'm not sure you can go Travis Hunter over him. Yeah, Gainwell projects a bit better. I'd be starting DJ Moore over Kenneth Gainwell personally. And we have in the Walter Picks app, the ceiling is definitely higher for DJ Moore. The floor is higher for Kenneth Gainwell. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't hate Troy Franklin this week if the Bengals can keep this game competitive. The role for Troy Franklin was not bad last week. Didn't come down with a couple of his targets, so we missed on that prop last week. Let me pull up Christian Kirk here as well. He gets the Titans. They've not been great versus receivers. Yeah, I'm going with two of DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Troy Franklin. I'm not going to start Travis Hunter this week. Really tough to start Travis Hunter. Parker Washington is getting a huge role for the Jaguars right now. On top of that, De'Ami Brown's going to have a big role like he's had. I mean, I didn't think it was realistic for the Jaguars to have Travis Hunter standing on the sidelines as De'Ami Brown and Parker Washington ran routes this season. I think I was a little bit wrong about that. I mean, both those guys are playing okay. And Brad Thomas Jr. is going to be fine, I think, still as well. And obviously have a huge role. Chase Brown or Kenneth Gainwell? We're going Chase Brown over Kenneth Gainwell. We're going Chase Brown over Kenneth Gainwell. I feel like I'm telling a lot of people to bench Kenneth Gainwell right now. Happy Sunday to you as well, Jonah. Full PPR. Chase Brown, Dobbins, Cortland Sutton, JMO, Addison available. Yeah, so Jordan Addison's startable here in this Ireland time game this morning. The ceiling is there. I'm not starting him over Cortland Sutton, though. I'm not starting him over J.K. Dobbins either. I would go Dobbins and Sutton against the Bengals. At least one of these guys can have a big game. Both can have big games. Here versus one of the worst defenses in the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, I'm prioritizing, guys, this start sits in the Steelers-Vikings game. I expect the Vikings to win this one pretty handedly. I'm pretty surprised that there's a 2.5-point spread in this game. Now, I think this game should be more of a 4.5, 5.5-point spread to the Vikings. Carson Wentz played well last week. The Vikings defense has been one of the better defenses in the NFL so far this season. Jordan Addison is back. Jaylen Warren is out. I mean, what Steelers are realistically like must starts in fantasy? None of them. There's not a single Steeler that is a must start fantasy football player right now. The offense last week, their performance last week, let me pull up Aaron Rodgers' numbers here against the Patriots, were really disappointing. Aaron Rodgers throws for 139 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns. I mean, he completed 70% of his passes, but 6 yards per attempt against the Pats. The Patriots defense has been atrocious this season. Like, they are not a good defense. They have Christian Gonzalez coming back today, so hopefully that helps them. Geno Smith threw for 362. Tua threw for 315, and then Aaron Rodgers throws for 139. The Steelers almost lost last week to the Patriots. The Patriots turned the ball over 5 times, and they still barely beat them. Just not a good football team right now. This defense is also really bad. The Steelers defense is also really bad. Vikings should have no problems against this Steelers defense. And the Steelers offense is, really uninspiring right now. DK Metcalf is startable, but we've seen him score twice this season. He still hasn't even had more than 12.5 points in a game. 3.3 catches per game. That's 52nd among receivers. 45 receiving yards per game. That's 42nd among receivers. He's scored twice. This Viking secondary has obviously been really strong. They rank number 1 versus receivers so far this season too. All right, let's see if there's any other tough start sits here. Yeah, you're starting Keenan Allen here, Josiah. I'm prioritizing. We're on Ireland time this morning. Shout out to every single one of you, by the way, on Ireland time. I know you are a legit fantasy football person. If you're up on Ireland time, making sure that you got all the news in, you know that Jaylen Warren's out, and you're getting the right start sit decisions in. And yeah, you got to start Keenan over Addison. You got to start Keenan over Ted. I think Ted is one of the biggest buy low candidates in fantasy football right now. I'm trying to send trades for Ted McMillan in every single league. And we might have another good buy low opportunity after this week, especially if Christian Gonzalez is back in full form here in week 4 and he's lined up against Ted. We could have a really, really good buy low opportunity with Ted. He is going to be a stud in the NFL, like an alpha wide receiver for the Panthers this season and moving forward. He hasn't really had a big fantasy game yet, but they're going to come. And it might not come this week. But yeah, Keenan Allen's a must-start player right now. The biggest concern I have for the Chargers. It's just if that game will be close. I think it'll be close enough, though, for Justin Herbert to be a start, Keenan Allen to be a start, Quentin Johnson to be a start, and I am not benching Ladd McConkey, another really obvious buy low right now in fantasy. Question for the early game. Do you think Addison is a better start over Tet McMillan? Yeah, let's get to this one. Definitely not an obvious start-sit decision here. I'll go to the wide receiver ranks here again on the TikTok live. Let me pull up the running back ranks here actually on the YouTube live. Go to Addison versus Tet. I think they project really close here. We got Tet projected ahead of Addison. Addison is a guy I would prefer to bench if I have a good option against him. Tet McMillan projects a little bit better. Addison's ceiling is higher, and I do agree with this. Jordan Addison had multiple 30-point games last season. We haven't really seen the ceiling game for Tet McMillan yet. He did have 100 yards in week 2, 16 points in that game. But definitely a bit risky this week with Christian Gonzalez back. But the Patriots secondary has been really, really rough. And I'm not convinced Christian Gonzalez will just shadow Tet McMillan the whole game. They have been moving him around the formation a decent amount. But Tet still hasn't scored a touchdown this season. That definitely will change, and it could change this week. I think I lean towards Tet over Addison. I'm pretty convinced the Vikings will handle this game pretty easily. I like Jordan Mason's rushing prop line in this game the most for that reason. Might not be a huge volume game here for Jordan Addison. So the ceiling's there. I could talk myself into the ceiling case for Jordan Addison in a lot of spots, but yeah, I'm going Tet McMillan here. Addison or Metcalf, that one's Addison. Yeah, I'm going Addison over Metcalf for sure. Ladd or Tet, yeah, I'm not benching Tet I'm not benching Ladd. I'm not benching Ladd. Yo, Sam the man, hope you're good, and shout out to my boy Samps. Would love to see him on here, but Steelers game question. Yes, Samps definitely will join the Sunday morning live as a guest at some point. Shout out to Samps as well. I don't know if you guys read his letter to T. Higgins. If you didn't read his letter to T. Higgins in the Walter Picks app, you got to read it. It definitely is motivating me to start him in some spots. Full-on letter to T. Higgins, but from Samps in the Walter Picks app. If you haven't read that, definitely go read that. Samps has been crushing the write-ups in the Walter Picks app. All right, Geno, Dak, or Rodgers? You cannot start Rodgers here in this start-sit question. Absolutely not. We're not starting Rodgers here. Geno's definitely like a decent start. I think we're actually projecting him like a little bit too low in the Walter Picks app. It's a pretty good matchup for Geno. Geno has not been bad this season. He had a tough game in week 2. He had 26 points last week. He's got 2 games now over 280 yards. And this is a good matchup against the Bears. I mean, no way around it. The Bears secondary, the Bears defense has not been good. J.J. McCarthy had 23 points against them in week 1. Jared Goff went for 34 points. Dak only had 14 last week. CeeDee Lamb got hurt in that game, though. I think I go Geno here like pretty easily over Dak and over Rodgers. I'd play Dak over Rodgers, I think, as well. Yeah, we have Rodgers at QB 30. Not startable here against the Vikings. The Vikings have been the 3rd best defense versus quarterbacks this season. They've been the number 1 defense versus wide receivers this season. Vikings game. Mason, Pearsall, Myers, Genty, Pickens, Javonte, Keenan. You were starting Jordan Mason. You got to start Jordan Mason. George Pickens projects really well. I'm not like all in on George Pickens this week. I think we're actually projecting George Pickens a little bit less than you're seeing on other platforms. We're actually a little bit behind on George Pickens, but he still projects, I think, as a top 20 wide receiver. Where do we have Pickens at? Yeah, wide receiver 14. I think it's a little bit high. As a ranking, let me go back to the wide receiver ranks. I get it's hard not to project him pretty high, though, with CeeDee Lamb out. Like, easily projecting for his highest target share of the season. He hasn't even had a 25% target share yet this season. Last week, CeeDee Lamb got hurt very early in that game, finishes with just a 20% target share. It's not like the Packers defense is an easy matchup here. So I think I would probably personally go Myers over Pickens. Yeah, I think you just go with Mason, Myers, and Keenan. I think I'd go Mason, Myers, and Keenan here. Bench Pearsall, bench Javonte, bench Genty, who I like a lot this week too. All pretty good options. But yeah, I'm not benching Jordan Mason this game. Absolutely not. Hawkinson or Njoku, I think I lean Njoku over Hawkinson. I actually think we have Hawkinson like way ahead of Njoku. Let me hop to the tight end ranks here. I might switch my mind on this when I compare these guys. Oh, God, the Steelers just got cooked by Hunter Henry last week. I think you might have to go Hawkinson. I don't hate the spot for Njoku either. Yeah, you got to go Hawkinson. The Steelers they just allowed the tight end 1 performance last week to Hunter Henry. 29-point game to Hunter Henry. AJ Barner was a top 10 tight end against the Steelers. He scored in that game. That's all it took. I mean, they played one good tight end this season, and he went for 29 points, Billy. So, yeah, we're starting Hawkinson. Brother, Gainwell, Caleb, or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Yeah, so in that one, you got to go Gainwell. We're definitely not at the point where we can start Caleb Johnson over Kenneth Gainwell. And, man, I mean, I did not expect to be saying that sentence so confidently before the season started, but, I mean, it's definitely true. You're starting Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt over Caleb Johnson, like, very easily. We still have Caleb Johnson projected for just 1.5 points right now in the Walter Picks out. I'm hoping that he beats this projection. But, guys, Trey Sermon might straight up play ahead of Caleb Johnson in this game. This could be the true end for Caleb Johnson if he does get a real role here with Jalen Warren out. I don't know how we keep him on any fantasy rosters. And, again, I'm still high on Caleb Johnson long-term, beyond this season. I still think he fits the Steelers scheme really well and is a talented running back. But he couldn't have started his career like worse. And the fact that he projects for 1.5 points right now, even with Jalen Warren out, I think says everything you need to know. Really rough. Gainwell, Monty, Chubb, or Shakir. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, this one's got to be David Montgomery. I'm going Montgomery over Kenneth Gainwell. I think I would go Gainwell over Nick Chubb. I think I would go Gainwell over Khalil Shakir. Shakir versus Gainwell is honestly pretty close. But I'm definitely going Monty over all these guys. Let's do Gainwell versus Shakir real quick. I'm going to put Nick Chubb in this one too. I do not think you could start Nick Chubb this week. I think I have Nick Chubb as one of my must benches this week. Yeah, I do. I actually have Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as one of my must benches as well. Yeah, I'm going Gainwell over Shakir, Gainwell over Nick Chubb, but I'm playing David Montgomery over Gainwell. Nick Chubb's losing more and more work to Woody Marks. The Texans have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Just joined late. James, we're on Ireland time this morning. We got a game kicking off in 10 minutes. You just made it. Which Steelers running back do I pick up if I have Jalen Warren? It's Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, it's Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell's the guy you pick up, but there might be better options out there than Gainwell. Ireland time question. Gainwell, Judy, or Dobbs, PPR? Yeah, I think I said earlier, I'm going Dobbs over Gainwell. I honestly think I might go Dontavian Wicks over Gainwell as well. At least one of, if not multiple of, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, and Tucker Kraft going to absolutely smash today. There might not be a worse defense than the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL right now. I mean, they cannot stop anyone. And the Packers passing attack suddenly is like kind of condensed. Usually, like a 4 or 5 wide receiver rotation. Right now, it's really 3 guys out there at wide receiver, and almost no one else is mixing in. The Cowboys rank dead last in points allowed to quarterbacks, dead last in passing yards allowed. They rank third worst in passing touchdowns allowed. They're allowing 300 passing yards and 2.3 passing touchdowns per game right now. Russell Wilson had his career best game in week 2, and then he's benched the following week. Like, the Cowboys defense is one of the most obvious, just absolute exploitable matchup in fantasy football right now. So I would rather get any of these Packers receivers in, honestly, over Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell, to me, he's more of a floor play today. It's not a great matchup for Gainwell. Definitely decent projectable volume. But Dontavian Wicks, he could outscore Gainwell in like 2 catches in this matchup versus the Cowboys. So yeah, I'm going back to this question. I think it's really Dobbs versus Judy here. I probably would start both these guys over Gainwell. I'll toss Gainwell in this starts it too. He might project better than Judy. Yeah, he projects a little bit better than Judy. I think I'd go Judy over Gainwell too, though. I think I'd go Dobbs, then Judy, then Gainwell. That's how I would have it. Mason, Tet, and Alvin Kamara. Yeah, I think the panic meter for me, I think like people are panicking too much just across the NFL right now, across the fantasy football landscape, especially with some of these rookies. Talk about that as I go game by game here. Coming up in 10 minutes, I'll switch back to my game by game format. I'm prioritizing the Ireland time start sits this morning. Started the live stream early this morning because we're on Ireland time, man. We're locked in. We couldn't be more locked in. And we're not benching Jordan Mason in this game. Absolutely not. My favorite player prop in this game is Jordan Mason's rushing yards over 82.5. I had my best betting week, I think, of all time last week. And I actually went 1 for 3 on the player props I shared on this live. My official props. But the props I shared game by game hit at a 60% clip. And my favorite prop of the week, Luther Burden last week. We're going to talk about him again this week. absolutely smashed. And I laddered up all of his alt lines, had him to score a touchdown as well. Absolutely incredible week with Luther Burden last week, betting wise. But yeah, I like Jordan Mason over 82.5 rushing yards. Not my favorite prop of the week, but my favorite prop of this game. So if you're riding with the prop advice on the live stream today, we can start off the week well here, the day well, with Jordan Mason's rushing line. So we're starting Jordan Mason for sure. This is a good matchup for Jordan Mason. Tet versus Alvin Kamara is not an easy start sit. The panic meter for me with Alvin Kamara is pretty high right now. He had one catch last week. He's playing massive amounts of snaps. He has the second highest snap count in the NFL. Alvin Kamara, only behind Tony Pollard. He's ahead of Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson in snaps per game. I mean, wild stuff. And he still hasn't had a big game. I mean, he had a good game week 2 with 16 points. He had 6 catches in that game and 99 rushing yards. But then last week against the Seahawks, 1 catch for 14 yards on 2 targets. He's got 2 targets in 2 of his 3 games now. A 5% target share for Kamara, just really surprising stuff. How inconsistent the target share has been for Kamara. Not what I would have expected. He's got 1 touchdown this season. I mean, the Saints are struggling to score touchdowns. Like if the target volume's not there for Kamara and the touchdowns aren't there, I mean, he's like not a good fantasy option at all. He's at 12.1 points per game this season. And usually you're drafting Kamara to start off the season strong because he's an older running back who's really slowed down the stretch in past seasons. So yeah, I'd go Jordan Mason and Tet here, I think, over Kamara. Is Caleb Johnson startable or no? No, he's not startable. We're projecting him for 1.5 points. He's not even in the top 40 running backs with Jaylen Warren out. I'm rooting for Caleb Johnson big time, though. Big time. I still think he has a really high ceiling long term. Can't believe I'm asking, but Genty, Ridley, or Pickens? Also, Pittman or Waddle both PPR. Yeah, this isn't a Ireland time question, so I'm going to go fast here. So I prioritize the Ireland time questions because this Ireland time game starts in 6 minutes. But you can't start Ridley here. It's Genty versus Pickens. I think you kind of have to go Pickens. And the Pittman versus Waddle is a close one. I think I lean towards Pittman. All right, Vikings game question. Guys, if you have a Vikings Steelers start sit question, you got to send it in the chat right now. You got 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Need to start 1 wide receiver and 1 running back. Gainwell, ETN, JMO, and Addison. Oh, man. Yeah, I think you probably go ETN and Addison here. Jameson Williams is not an easy start sit. He's going to be a boom bust guy all season. He's got a ceiling, obviously. Addison is like a slightly better start, I think, than JMO in a similar type of archetype. ETN, I would start over Gainwell. He's right at that line for us, projections-wise. Yeah, I think I'd go Addison and ETN here over JMO and Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell or Henderson? Ireland question. Yeah, Mason, this is the start sit question I opened the live stream with today because I got this exact same start sit. And we got Gainwell projected just ahead of Henderson. And I think projections-wise, these are median projections. You got to remember the difference between a median projection and then the range of outcomes for these players. There's a big difference there. And yeah, the median projection for Gainwell is better. He's projecting for more volume than Trevian Henderson today. Trevian Henderson's in a 3-way committee. But the ceiling's higher for Henderson. The ceiling's got to be higher for Henderson. The matchup's better for Henderson. There's at least a narrative out there that Henderson could get more work today after the fumbles last week. I know that the coaching staff said that wouldn't be the case, but it was the case at the end of last game. You know, which one is it, Mike Vrabel? He clearly benched Ramondre Stevenson in the 4th quarter. But they're saying they're not going to discipline him here in week 4. I don't think we can fully trust the coach speak there. I think Henderson definitely will still be involved. Good matchup, obviously, for him. I'm going Henderson. I can't in my soul, I cannot get myself to bench my 4th or 5th round fantasy draft pick for Kenneth Gainwell when they project about the same. And one of them has a way higher ceiling than the other. The ceiling is not that exciting here for Kenneth Gainwell. It's more of a floor play, in my opinion. Shaheed or Gainwell, this is a tough one too. Let's toss Shaheed in here. I think you probably go Gainwell here. Yeah, I mean, it's another like floor ceiling decision. But the floor hasn't been like awful for Rashid Shaheed. 8-point floor. Man, I honestly, like I wouldn't knock you for going Shaheed here at all. I kind of lean towards Shaheed. He projects a little bit worse. The ceiling is absolutely higher though. I think I go Shaheed personally over Kenneth Gainwell. May or Wentz? Yeah, straight May over Wentz. Mason or Pickens? I'm not benching Jordan Mason. I'm not doing it. I know Pickens projects really well today. I'm really not going to recommend anyone bench Jordan Mason here in this matchup. Jordan Mason is in one of the best roles in the NFL. And it's a little misleading when you look at last week's stats for Jordan Mason, because the game was over literally in the first quarter last week for the Vikings. Again, I'm just pretty surprised the Vikings are only 2.5-point favorites in this game. Pretty surprising to me. This is not a Ireland time question. Yeah, we're playing Tet over Gainwell. I think the overarching sentiment for me answering all these start sits right now, I'm benching Gainwell in like most spots. Gainwell is a floor play, not a ceiling play. I like to chase the ceilings when it comes to fantasy football. I just don't think there's like extremely high ceiling for Gainwell in this game. Hey, Sam, got a tight end question. Sit Warren or Kincaid? Yeah, got to sit Kincaid. Vikings game question. What's up, Sam? Yo, what's up, yo? Metcalf, BTJ, Egbuka, Tet, Pearsall, Pickens. You're not starting Metcalf. You just cannot start Metcalf in a spot like this. Absolutely not. Brian Thomas Jr., one of the most difficult start sits of the week. Absolutely one of the most difficult players right now in fantasy. I don't think you start him in a start sit like this. I got the wide receiver ranks up right now. Let me pull the wide receiver ranks on the YouTube live here as well. Brian Thomas Jr. is one of the most difficult guys to rank in all fantasy football right now because the volume's been there. The historical efficiency is there for Brian Thomas Jr. He ranks as wide receiver 26 for us right now. That's behind Egbuka. That's behind Pearsall. That's behind Pickens. And I think it's behind Tet too. I mean, he ranks dead last of all these receivers. I mean, wild stuff. He was a first-round pick in fantasy, early second-round pick in fantasy. I'm not fully panicked on him either, but guys, he doesn't have a game over 10 points. Parker Washington is getting a higher target share than him. And I mean, he has not played well. His catch rate is 28%. He's catching 1/4 of his targets. That is 126th in the NFL. I mean, is there anyone under him? There's like, we only even have the top 100 in the Walter Piggs app. I'm not even convinced there's been someone under him that has any reasonable amount of targets. 28% catch rate is absolutely atrocious. It does not get worse than this. He doesn't have a game where he caught more than a third of his targets. And I do think this is going to regress. I mean, we're projecting him for a 54% catch rate here in week 4. That's got to be one of the lowest projections in the league. You do not have a season under a 30% catch rate for a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. Just wild stuff. But yeah, I'm fine benching him for all of these guys outside of Metcalf. I would start Brian Thomas Jr. over Metcalf, to be clear. All right, that is it. The Ireland time start sits, guys, they're locked in. This is why we start 30 minutes early, because it creeps up on you, man. It creeps up. And I promise you that if you were in this live stream on Ireland time, like you are in the top 10 percentile of fantasy managers. I guarantee you we're going to see. First of all, if you found this live stream and you're tuned into this live stream in general, like you're already in probably the top 10 percentile of just fantasy management in general. Like you're in the right spot. But I promise you we're going to see start sit questions later in this live about Jalen Warren, about Kenneth Gainwell. Start 1, Judkins, Chase Brown, Kamara. Yeah, not a Ireland time question here. I think I'd go Judkins here, though. All right, we're going to go back to the regular programming here on this live as the Ireland time game is going to kick off here momentarily between the Vikings and the Steelers. So we're going to go game by game. I'm going to get to tons of start sit questions on this live, I promise. We're going to have a guest on again to tell me to bench TreVeyon Henderson, because I need a guest to come on every week to try to convince me to bench TreVeyon Henderson. Like, I need it. I'm starting Henderson over Gainwell in one league for sure. All right, let's get to some of these other games today. A lot of really good games on our TV screens today. And we got a fun game between the Vikings and Steelers kicking off shortly. I'm on the Vikings to win. I'm on Jordan Mason rushing line. Let's talk about this Chargers and Giants game here to kick off the game by game segment of this live. I'm going to go game by game. I'm going to give my thoughts about each game, some of the narratives and storylines I'm following closely in each game. I'm going to give my favorite player prop in each game. We hit on over 60% clip on these last week. And we're going to talk about really every fantasy relevant player in every single game. And then I'm going to get to my DraftKings lineup. Then we're going to get to tons and tons and tons of start sit questions. Happy Sunday morning to you all, guys. It is the best day of the week. All right. The Chargers are 6.5-point favorites here in New York. The scariest part about this Chargers offense for fantasy this week is just if this game will be close. I think it will be close enough that you basically have to start all of these Chargers offensive players. The Chargers are number one in the NFL right now in pass rate over expectation. What that means is in neutral game environments, in environments where typically you would be running the ball, the Chargers are throwing the ball at the highest rate in the league. This is not a run-first offense. Justin Herbert ranks as QB5. I do not want to bench Justin Herbert right now. Like a legit MVP candidate. Marion Hampton with Najee Harris. He's out for the season with the Achilles. You cannot be benching Marion Hampton. Like, this is the stone cold best scenario for Hampton right now. He had 25 points last week. After the injury, played 80% of the snaps. And he's in a workhorse role all of a sudden in one of the best offenses in the league in one of the best matchups of the week. Absolutely no benching of Marion Hampton this week. Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey both project as top 10 wide receivers. And Quentin Johnson's not that far behind. And guys, every single week, two of these three guys are going to perform well. They have the lowest tight end target share in the league. And they're passing near the highest volume in the league. I'm all in on Ladd right now. The more I think about this offense, the more I think the start to the season is actually really promising for Ladd. Like if you had told me before the season started that Justin Herbert's going to be playing at an MVP level and their pass rate over expectation for the Chargers is going to be number one in the league, I would have been taking Ladd McConkey at the end of the first round. And he hasn't had a big game yet. Hasn't scored yet. He's getting out-targeted by Keenan Allen, out-targeted by Quentin Johnson in multiple games. I think when we look back at the end of the season, Ladd McConkey is going to be the number one receiver in this offense. We just saw him have an elite rookie season. I'm not saying Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson won't be involved, but Ladd McConkey is going to project really well every single week for as long as this offense looks this good passing the ball. And they have a really good schedule this season too. Like Ladd McConkey is going to have 30-point games, guys, in this offense. We haven't seen even a 15-point game yet from him. I'm not panicked at all about Ladd McConkey, and I'm buying as much as I possibly can. But all these receivers are good starts. They're all good starts. Quentin Johnston is having a breakout season. He hasn't had a game under 14 points. All 3 weeks, Quentin Johnston has led the Chargers in receiving yards. Every single game so far this season. Wild stuff. Averaging 80 yards per game. That's sixth most in the NFL. Man, I don't know how you bench Quentin Johnston right now. But yeah, I'm still starting Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey over him. Oronde Gadsden out of Syracuse had a pretty good game in his opening game. He was a healthy scratch in his first two games. He's definitely a sleeper tight end this week. Not a guy I really want to force into the starting lineup. But Will Dissly's out again this week for the Chargers. On the Giants side of the ball, we got the Jackson Dart era starting. Jackson Dart was a quarterback that we were pretty high on before the NFL draft, partially because he runs. Guys, this is going to be one of the better rushing QBs in fantasy. It's why he projects as well as he projects this week in the Walter Picks app. He projects as QB 13 left on the week. The fact that the Giants went to him so fast when we just 2 weeks ago saw the greatest Russell Wilson game of all time. We saw two bad Russell Wilson games. Sandwiched in between that was the greatest Russell Wilson game in the history of his career, just passing yards wise at least. I mean, that was one of the games of the year for sure. I think we've already seen probably the 2 games of the year. The Ravens, Bills game week 1, and then week 2, that Cowboys Giants game was absolutely insane. But yeah, Jackson Dart is startable here. And a guy that I think should be rostered in every single fantasy league and is worth adding off the waiver wire as a backup QB. He's going to run. His over-under rushing yards today is 35.5 rushing yards. That's near the top of all quarterback rushing lines. Cam Scatterbo is in must-start territory. Tyrone Tracy is going to be out the next few weeks. Scatterbo had 24 points versus a pretty good Chiefs defense, 6 catches for 61 yards. I think one of the biggest question marks I have in this game is if Jackson Dart's going to throw to the running backs as much as Russell Wilson was, because he was dumping it down a ton, Russell Wilson, last week. So I'm not sure we're going to see 6 catches again for Scatterbo, but he's in a workhorse role, splitting time with Devin Singletary, who couldn't be more washed. Malik Neighbors projects outside the top 10 wide receivers for us this week right now, but he's not a guy you're benching. Absolutely can't bench him. He's coming off his career worst game. Malik Neighbors, 3.3 points, 2 catches for 13 yards, like pretty much career lows across the board for Malik Neighbors last week. There's just not many guys you really need to defend against the Giants. Like one of the more obvious double team situations in the NFL when you look at the depth chart for the Giants. So yeah, I'm taking the Chargers, obviously in this one. I like Keenan Allen over 4.5 receptions the most of any line in this game. There's a lot of must starts on the Chargers, not a ton of must starts on the Giants outside of Malik Neighbors and Scatterbo. All right, moving on to the next game here. Let me pull up the running back ranks here on both live streams. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. By the way, we are posting so much content on YouTube this season. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, smash the like button. We're already an hour into the live stream because we're on Ireland time this morning. It looks like the Steelers just went 3 now, and our Vikings spread and money line take and Jordan Mason line off to a good start. One drive in. Hit the like button if you're watching live on YouTube. Seriously helps out way more than you could possibly realize. Switch to the running back ranks here on the TikTok live. If you're watching live on TikTok, shout out to you as well. All right, let's get to the next game here. The Titans versus the Texans. The Texans are favored by 6.5 points in this game. I mentioned earlier when talking about this Vikings spread, they were only favored by 2.5, which is pretty surprising to me. The Texans are favored by 6.5. Like, there's a lot of surprising spreads to me out there in the NFL, and this is definitely one of them here in week 4. The Texans have been one of the worst teams in the NFL, completely incapable of moving the ball on offense so far this season. Their offensive line has been atrocious. The CJ Stroud, he's topped out at 207 passing yards so far this season. He's averaging under 200 passing yards per game in the NFL. He's averaging under 1 passing touchdown per game, 24th in passing yards, 32nd in passing touchdowns. Guys, there's only 32 teams in the NFL. And they're favored by 6.5. I get that the Titans have not been good. I get that this game is at home. But man, I mean, to me, this is like more of a pick-em game. I'm not convinced the Texans are this much better than the Titans. Notable that Woody Marks, he's ascending. His snap share is rising every single week. When you see this for rookies, it's notable, especially for a guy like Woody Marks. He's a good pass catcher. It's still tough to get too excited about any of the running backs on this team because the offensive line is so bad. I mean, it's going to be really tough to run the ball for the Texans this season. But the target shares, they haven't been super high for Woody Marks yet, but he's a capable receiving back for sure. And they've had a pretty tough schedule in terms of the run game that opens up a little bit here versus the Titans. They rank 3rd worst against running back so far this season. But Nick Chubb's not startable because Woody Marks is playing more. And Woody Marks isn't really startable because he's not going to run the ball a ton, and Nick Chubb's still going to play. My favorite prop in this game, though, is the Nick Chubb unders, just across the board, all the unders. I like his total yards under the most in this game. They set the total yards under at 57.5 total yards. Actually, in the Walter Picks app, we identified this prop as a major value when it was at like 64.5. This is part of the reason the Walter Picks prop evaluator in the subscription to the prop insights in the Walter Picks app is extremely valuable because we're identifying the value before the lines move, not after the lines move. I actually still like this line after the lines move like 8 yards. But yeah, start the free trial on the Walter Picks app if you're serious about trying to grind the player prop markets because there's so much value out there if you're going to identify this type of stuff before it moves. But yeah, Nick Chubb might not even play over half the snaps this week. He barely played over half the snaps last week. He had 9 carries and 4 targets. I mean, 4 targets is probably going to be a season high for Nick Chubb, especially with Woody Marks playing more. He might not hit 10 carries today. He has not had a game over 13 carries. And again, I'm just not convinced they should be favored by 6.5 points in this game either. Nico Collins, obviously a must start. He's the only guy you can really start on the Texans. Right now, on the Titans side of the ball, I mean, is Calvin Ridley a sleeper or a bust? Because it's got to be one of the two. I think I lean towards sleeper. You know, if you force me to decide, is Calvin Ridley a sleeper or a bust? I'm leaning towards sleeper over bust just because of the matchups he's had to start the season. He played the Broncos, the Rams, and the Colts. All 3 of these teams have been pretty good against receivers. We had Seth on the live stream last week, and he warned us about Calvin Ridley. The Colts have shut down every single top receiver they played. Calvin Ridley was not an exception. 1 catch, 27 yards. It was his worst game of the season. It opens up a little bit this week. I was hopeful that Stingley was going to not play this week for the Texans. Sounds like the top corner for the Texans, he will be active in this game. It's not like they have a bad secondary. The Houston Texans, Puka Nacua smash because he smashes every matchup. But he's the only receiver we've seen go over 15 points. The only receiver we've seen go over 13 points versus the Texans this season is Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams didn't do it. Emeka Egbuka didn't do it. Mike Evans didn't do it. Brian Thomas Jr., De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington didn't do it. Travis Hunter didn't do it. Calvin Ridley might not go over 13 points again. We really need a big play from Calvin Ridley to produce in fantasy. Not a guy you need to start here in week 4. Imanor has been outproducing him here so far this season. He's got multiple games over 13 points. Back-to-back games with a touchdown. You got to take note in situations like this. When rookies start their careers like this, playing over 70% of the snaps, playing pretty efficiently, scoring touchdowns, in an otherwise pretty bleak offense, I really think Imanor continues to be pretty underrated and a guy I want on my fantasy teams. It looks like Jalen Ramsey just had a pick 6 in the Steelers game. Pick 6 or a fumble? I didn't see which one it was. Chat, was a pick 6 or a fumble? We're locked into the live, so I'm not going to see every single game, every single play. And I promise we're going to get to tons and tons of start-sit questions. Fumble. Yikes. Fumble from Jordan Mason. Rough. Rough for the Jordan Mason prop start here. Yeah, it looked like a rough fumble. All right, on to the next game here. The Commanders at the Falcons. We're going game by game right now. We're going to get to tons and tons and tons and tons of start-sit questions after I go game by game. We got the Commanders playing without Terry McLaurin, playing without Noah Brown, and they got no Jane Daniels as well. I don't know how this team's going to pass the ball today. The Falcons ranked 4th best against quarterbacks this season. They also ranked number 1 versus tight ends. I don't think they've played great tight ends, though. So far this season, yeah, they played Kate Otten, TJ Hawkinson, Jatavian Sanders. Not a single tight end that even has 4 points, though, versus the Falcons. Like, Zach Ertz projects okay because the target share's got to go somewhere. He's actually been pretty consistent this season. Doesn't have a game under 6.5 points. He's got at least 3 catches in every game. He had 3 for 38 last week with Mariota, but I'm not convinced this team's going to move the ball at all passing today versus the Falcons. Deebo Samuel is also startable with all these guys out. He projects for like a pretty big role here with no Terry McLaurin, no Noah Brown. And they've been using Deebo Samuel in a pretty solid way, getting him a lot of quick touches at the line of scrimmage, letting him create after the catch. Deebo Samuel has the 3rd most yards after the catch per game in the NFL right now. It goes Jamar Chase, Zay Flowers, then Deebo. Ahead of Puka Nacua, Jacoby Myers, Quentin Johnson's on this list. DK Metcalf's pretty high up here too. But yeah, Deebo Samuel's in a really strong role. No Terry McLaurin, no Noah Brown. Terry McLaurin's injury too seems pretty ominous right now with some of the reporting around Terry McLaurin. It seems like he's going to miss at least 2 games, maybe 3, maybe 4 games with this quad injury that he has. Looks like that fumble came back against the Steelers. And Jalen Ramsey maybe got hurt too on the return. Yikes. The Falcons are coming off one of the most brutal losses so far this season. They were down 30-0 against the Panthers. I mean, a really surprising result against the Panthers. Can they bounce back after that brutal L here against the Commanders? The Falcons are 2.5-point favorites against the Washington Commanders at home after getting just destroyed by the Carolina Panthers. This is a really, really big bounce back spot for the Falcons. I think both London and Mooney are pretty good starts. I think Darnell Mooney's like one of the more underrated receivers in fantasy football right now. Will not be surprised at all if he's a big game this week. He had 4 catches for 44 last week, 27% target share, 11 targets for Darnell Mooney in his 2nd game of the season. He missed week 1. They played the 2 top teams against receivers the last 2 weeks. The Vikings are number 1 versus receivers this season. And the Panthers are number 2. The Commanders have been pretty bad against receivers so far this season. I like Darnell Mooney and Drake London a lot. Drake London ranks as a top 5 wide receiver right now. This week, Trey Tucker just went for 41 points versus the Commanders. That's the type of role Darnell Mooney is going to be playing. And that's really why they rank so bad versus receivers. No other receiver even had 12.5 points against the Commanders. So a very skewed number there. But yeah, I do think Darnell Mooney and Drake London are decent starts, and Deebo's a good start too here. My favorite prop in this game is the Marcus Mariota passing under. The passing yards under for Mariota. He's missing his top, one of his top 2. He's missing his top receiver and his number 3 receiver in Noah Brown and Terry McLaurin. And he barely beat this prop line last week. Last week, Mariota, he only threw the ball 21 times, had 207 passing yards in an easier matchup against the Raiders than he gets today versus the Falcons. We got him projected for 180 passing yards. I do think the Falcons bounce back, though, and win this one. They're 2.5-point favorites here after getting crushed by the Panthers. All right, on to the next game. We got the Saints at the Bills. This is the survivor pick of the week. I haven't been on any of the chalk survivor picks of the week so far. We are 3-3 on the survivor picks this season. But when you have a situation like this, we got one of the best teams in the NFL playing one of the worst teams in the NFL. This is the spot to take the Bills. You can't pick the same team twice, but there's almost no world where the Bills lose this game versus the Saints. The Saints are 0-3, the Bills 3-0. This has this game for fantasy, like a really, really wide range of game environments here because it could be a really lopsided matchup. Like Josh Allen might not throw the ball 25 times today. We've seen in week 2 in that game versus the Jets, that was a blowout. He only threw the ball 25 times, had 14 completions. He only had 12 fantasy points. In that game, he just didn't need to do much. And he had 59 rushing yards too, but didn't throw a single touchdown, didn't run for a single touchdown. In games where it's not close, we're going to see really run-heavy game scripts for the Bills. And it definitely gives a really wide range of outcomes for fantasy football. All these receivers are pretty risky for the Bills because this game might not be close. Josh Allen still projects as QB1 this week, but I think the range of outcomes for him is pretty wide. James Cook, obviously a smash start. On the other side of this game, Chris Olave, just a complete PPR cheat code. Chris Olave, looking at some of these numbers for Olave, pretty crazy stuff. He's number 2 in catches per game this season. He's averaging over 7 catches per game at 7.7. Only Puka Nacua has more catches per game than Chris Olave this season. Just a complete PPR cheat code. He doesn't even have any huge games yet. He hasn't scored. He doesn't have a game over 16 points. Doesn't have a game under 11 points. But the floor for him is so high in this role. He's just not running deep targets, deep routes. His yards per reception is only 7.2 yards per reception for Olave. That's 99th among receivers this season, but he's second in catches. They're just giving him really easy layup catches. The ceiling might not be that high for anyone on this offense if they're not able to score, but yeah, Olave is just a PPR cheat code right now. Just a PPR scam. My favorite player prop for this one is Juwan Johnson over 4.5 receptions. He's in one of the best tight end roles in the league. He's beaten this line in all 3 games so far this season. The Bills have been pretty good against tight ends, but this team's throwing the ball a lot. They're running a lot of plays. No tight ends played more snaps or a higher snap percentage than Juwan Johnson. The only tight end that's run more routes than Juwan Johnson this season is David Njoku. A little surprising, honestly. He's second in targets, 4th in target share, 2nd in air yards. The role for Juwan Johnson is extremely strong. And yeah, they're, I think, 14.5-point underdogs in this game. They're going to have to throw for sure. So I like this Juwan Johnson over 4.5 receptions play. On to the next game here, the Eagles and the Bucs. Another kind of surprising spread to me. The Eagles, they're only favored by 3.5. Are the Buccaneers actually getting this much credit so far this season? The Bucs have 3 wins this season. None of them really commanding wins. And it's not like they played the best teams. The Buccaneers barely beat the Falcons in week 1. They won by 3. They beat the Texans by 1 point. And they just barely squeezed by the Jets last week by 2 points on a game-winning field goal, I think. They had that field goal blocked. I think they ended up winning it on a field goal. So they haven't had a win more than 3 points. They played the Falcons, the Texans, and the Jets. Now they get the Eagles, one of the best teams in the NFL. I'm pretty surprised the Eagles are only favored by 3.5. I get the game's in Tampa Bay. But we talked about it last week. I was not buying the fact that this pass volume is going to stay this low for the Eagles. And it regressed back to a normal passing environment last week. 23 pass attempts in week 1, 22 pass attempts in week 2 for Jalen Hurts, 32 in week 3. Finishes as QB2. A.J. Brown absolutely smashes. Devontae Smith had a pretty good game last week as well. I think we could see another game where the Eagles need to throw. If this spread is anywhere near reality. 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. A.J. Brown, wide receiver 4 last week. In environments where the Eagles have to throw, you're going to want these receivers. 8 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown for Devontae Smith. 20 points, wide receiver 9. Both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, top 10 wide receivers in the first game where the Eagles actually have to throw the ball. I do think they should be favored by more than 3.5. But again, if this spread's anywhere near reality, which usually the spreads are somewhat near reality, you're going to want to play Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown this week. Obviously, you're starting Saquon as well, and Dallas Goedert startable also. My favorite prop in this game is the Jalen Hurts completion line. Jalen Hurts, even in one of the games where he barely threw, beat this line. In week 1, 19 pass completions. That was against the Cowboys, to be fair. Their defense in the secondary is absolutely atrocious. But he threw the ball 32 times last week. He gets anywhere near that this week. He's easily completing 18.5, going over 18.5 completions. And you look at the matchup versus the Bucs. So far this season, Michael Penix, he completed 27 passes. Tyrod Taylor completed 26 passes. Last week, Stroud only had 13 completions. Texans offensive line, that offense is a mess. But yeah, Tyrod Taylor and Penix both did this. Jalen Hurts can definitely do it too. On the Buccaneers side of this game, we definitely want to be starting Bucky Irving, even in a somewhat difficult matchup. His receiving role has been really, really strong. Pretty much unbenchable right now, Bucky Irving. He's got at least 4 targets in every single game. His rush share was at 74% last week versus the Jets. Only at 13.9. Doesn't have a 20-point game yet this season, but he has not had a game under 13.5 points either. The floor is really, really strong for Bucky. He has not had a rushing touchdown yet either. Emeka Egbuka, I think, is an absolute must-start as well. Chris Godwin is back this week. We are projecting him not for a full normal role. Guys, Chris Godwin had a really, really brutal injury last season. It's hard to expect him to just step in and be the normal Chris Godwin that we're used to right away. Chris Godwin was the wide receiver 2 in points per game last season. We'll see if he can get back to what he was, but we're not projecting him to do that right away here in week 1. Judy, big game. Any chance? Definitely a chance that Judy has a big game. All right, let's get to the next game here. I do not want to start Baker Mayfield at all right now against the Eagles. I do think the Eagles cover that 3.5 point spread as well. All right, we got the Browns versus the Lions. I saw someone asking about Judy having a big game. Definitely possible. We haven't really seen a big Judy game yet this season. He doesn't project great in the Walter Picks app right now. Projects his wide receiver 37. I think that whole range of receivers, though, that he's in, like definitely really condensed range of receivers. He had 2.7 points versus the Packers last week, only 1 catch, 17 yards. I mean, there was no time to throw for Flacco last week. Pretty much all dump offs for Flacco. The Lions have a pretty good defensive line as well, but certainly not at the Packers level. We've seen some good wide receiver performances versus the Packers so far this season. Rome Odunze went for 32 points. Bateman had 17 points. Last week, those are the 2 good games we've seen. So I think Judy's capable of a big game, but definitely not a must start. The real guy that you really need to be starting right now for the Browns is Quinshon Judkins. Is Quinshon Judkins the best rookie running back in the NFL? He really might be. He was picked 1 pick before TreVeyon Henderson. He out-touched TreVeyon Henderson on the same team in college. He comes off the street practicing twice in week 2, gets almost half the carries, 10 carries, 3 targets, goes over 10 points against the Ravens in week 2 after practicing just twice. And then we knew last week his role was going to grow. And it did. 94 rushing yards and a touchdown. He played over half the snaps, saw 95% of the carries for the Browns last week, 18 carries, had 2 targets as well, 16.5 points versus the Packers. He was running back 11 last week. It's not an easy matchup here versus the Lions, but it really seems like a situation here for Judkins. Matchups might not matter. He was at 5.2 yards per carry versus the Packers last week, 6.1 yards per carry the week before that. 5.5 yards per carry this season is top 12 in the NFL. And on like pretty solid volume, where a lot of the guys on this list, they have like nowhere near the volume Judkins is getting. He might be the best rookie running back in the NFL. I definitely could see it. So yeah, we're starting Judkins. Like he's entering like must-start territory every week, regardless of matchup. Jameson Williams, we're projecting him to be unstartable this week. I'm not fully there with Waymo Jamo. He had 2 catches last week. That was it, 43 yards. Both those happened, I think, on the first drive. He had 2 catches in the first drive, did not get another catch the rest of the game. Only 1 target the rest of the game. He has now 3 straight games under a 15% target share. It's really hard to project a good game for Jameson Williams when we're projecting him a 15% target share. We're projecting him for a season high target share this week. Jameson Williams at 15%. And he projects his wide receiver 61 with a season high target share. Obviously, he's going to have target shares above 15% this season. I would be pretty surprised if he didn't, but predicting which weeks that's going to be is really, really rough. There's so many mouths to feed in this offense with Montgomery and Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Isaac Tesla is playing more. Obviously, Sam Laporta as well. Looks like the Steelers are knocking at the goal line right now. So yeah, I don't think you could start Jameson Williams. Probably going to be telling a lot of people to bench him. I think I told people to play Jameson Williams over Kenneth Gainwell. In a situation like that, Gainwell's into the end zone for a touchdown. Pretty good start for the role for Kenneth Gainwell. Already regretting benching him for TreVeyon Henderson. The Browns defensive line is the real deal, by the way. Like they're right up there with the Packers defense, at least in terms of defensive line. Sam Laporta also projects as like almost unstartable. This week, he's had one good game. Hasn't scored a touchdown yet this season. He's going to be a tough start sit to answer this week for sure. He's like in this tier of tight ends. Let me switch to the tight end ranks here. Sam Laporta's in this tier of tight ends that is really bunched together. Laporta, Chig, Njoku, Strange, Andrews, Fannin, Kincaid, Ertz, they all project within 1 point of each other. Kyle Pitts is in that tier. We have Hunter Henry in that tier as well. My favorite prop in this game is definitely the Judkins over 55.5 rushing yards. This is one of my favorite player props of the week. It's pretty clear, no matter the game script, Judkins is getting at least 12 carries and probably going to be near that 15-plus mark every single week. He's been efficient in really difficult matchups already. He's over 5 yards per carry in both games. He had 18 carries last week. He gets anywhere near 18 carries in this game. He's smashing 55.5 yards. He had over 55.5 rushing yards in his first career game where he had just 2 practices under his belt. Yeah, I like this Judkins line a lot. Definitely one of my favorites this week. Yeah, looking at these tight end rankings, I probably would go Laporta over Chig. I think I would play Njoku and Strange over him. I think I would actually prefer Laporta over Mark Andrews with Isaiah Likely back this week. Harold Fannin, I would probably play over Sam Laporta. Kincaid, I'd probably play over Sam Laporta. Zach Ertz, Kyle Pitts, Hunter Henry, I'd play over Sam Laporta as well. I do think this game will be somewhat close between the Browns and the Lions. Lions are big favorites in this one. I do think the Browns' defensive line is one of the best, if not the best in the NFL, right up there with the Packers. All right, Panthers versus the Patriots. Patriots are favored by 5.5 in this game. Panthers coming off a huge win versus the Falcons. The Patriots defense has been one of the worst in the NFL. I know Christian Gonzalez is coming back. I know this is a home game. Pretty surprising, though, still to see the Pats favored by this much here in week 4. Another one of the pretty surprising spreads to me. Patriots fumbled 5 times. They turned the ball over 5 times last week, 4 fumbles. Still almost beat the Steelers, who are now playing head-to-head here with the Vikings. I think a tie game here, 7-7, on Ireland time this morning. But yeah, the Pats favored by 5.5, just a bit surprising. This Patriots backfield, complete fantasy nightmare. I mean, I can't get myself to bench TreVeyon Henderson every single week, and every single week I'm making the same mistake. Just started Gainwell over him. I can talk myself into the ceiling for TreVeyon Henderson, but we really haven't seen any type of ceiling play for Henderson. It's been honestly just a floor situation for Henderson so far this season. Has at least 6 points in all 3 games. That's been his floor. Thanks to his receiving role, he's got at least 2 catches in every game. We were drafting TreVeyon Henderson because of the pass catching upside. He's top 10 in catches per game this season. But that's just keeping him afloat. He hasn't made a single big play. He's looked less efficient than all the other running backs in this backfield. He's averaging 3.4 yards per carry, only 6.6 yards per reception. Those are both outside the top 25 running backs, efficiency-wise. It took 3 fumbles total from Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson just for him to get on the field in a consistent role. And maybe he plays more this week. It's not a bad matchup for him either. It's pretty tough to get too excited about Trevion Henderson. And we're going to have Shay, our Lions creator, on the live stream here in like about an hour. And hopefully he'll help talk me out of Henderson in certain spots, like we talked about. Like I talked with Seth and Avery in the past 2 lives. Both them definitely trying to talk me out of Trevion Henderson. Ramondre Stevenson does project a little bit worse than Henderson this week. He's definitely not startable right now. Drake May, Hunter Henry, these are the only 2 Patriots players you can really start. Again, just pretty surprised. They're 5.5-point favorites here versus the Panthers. On the Panthers side of this game, Ted McMillan, he was questionable coming in. He's going to play. He's startable. Good to go for week 4. He was a calf injury that he's been playing through or practicing through. Chuba Hubbard's definitely a decent start. Ted McMillan, even with Christian Gonzalez back, I'm okay starting Ted McMillan. I think he's going to be a very, very good receiver in the NFL. I'm kind of hoping for one more down game from him without a touchdown, so I can really send some good trade offers for Ted McMillan across all my fantasy leagues. He's at least 8 targets in every single game. He's 10th in the league in targets. He's at 2 yards per out run, which is actually pretty strong for a rookie. And there's a lot of injuries going on right now for the Carolina Panthers. There's no Xavier Legette in this game. Obviously, Jalen Coker's been out. The receivers behind Ted McMillan are just a complete joke right now. David Moore, Bryson Tremaine, Hunter Renfrow projects for like a real role this week. He's projected for like a 20% target share. This week he's at 17%. They were projecting for an 18% target share for Hunter Renfrow here in week 4. Wouldn't be surprised to see him be a bit of a sleeper this week. My favorite prop in this game is Ramondre Stevenson under 51.5 total yards. I'm not buying the coach speak from Mike Vrabel that Ramondre is not going to see a reduced role this week. We literally saw last week he had a reduced role. He fumbled twice. He's had really bad fumbling problems throughout his whole career. And Tony Gibson's played well. Trevion Henderson was a 2nd-round pick. They're playing 3 different running backs. And when you have 3 different running backs that you're playing, how are you going to play a guy that has these fumbling issues? So yeah, I'm benching Ramondre this week, and I like his under total yards as well. I think this game is like more of a pick 'em to me than a 5.5-point spread for the Patriots. Pull the running back rankings here. Go to the wide receiver rankings on the TikTok live. Guys, in the chat, let me know what rankings list you want to see next. We got an Ireland game going on our TV screens right now. I'm locked into the live. I'm not watching the game. I'm looking up occasionally to see the status of the game, but appreciate you guys letting me know the highlights in the comments as well. Looks like my Kenneth Gainwell over Trevion Henderson starts the decision was already an early L here in week 4. But we're going to take some L's. We know how this goes. All right, Jaguars versus the 49ers. We got a Brock Purdy return. Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, both were questionable, both expected to play today. Mac Jones did a pretty good job for the 49ers when standing in for Purdy. He was playing through like a knee injury down the stretch of last game, almost like wasn't even able to hand the ball off on some of those plays with the knee injury. Put the knee brace on mid-game. Purdy projects as a top 10 QB right away. I'm very curious to see what the rushing volume looks like for Purdy. Now that he's back, one of the issues he was dealing with was a toe injury. He had 5 carries for a 14% rush share in week 1. We're projecting well under that here due to the toe injury. Might make him a little less exciting for fantasy. But if Pearsall is going to play, Jennings is going to play, Christian McCaffrey is not finished outside the top 12 running backs in a single week yet this season. He only has 1 touchdown this season. Christian McCaffrey hasn't even been under 22 points. He's been a top 6 running back all 3 games this season. He's by far leading the NFL in receptions per game, 8.3 catches per game. This is above almost every receiver. Let's pull up the receiver rankings here quick. Where would this rank among the receivers? 8.3 catches per game would be number 2 among receivers. Only Puka Nacua has more catches per game than Christian McCaffrey this season. I mean, wild stuff. You're getting a legit wide receiver 1 in your running back slot, and he's also getting 17 carries per game. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's got the healthiest calf in the NFL. He's literally leading the NFL in touches per game. He's 3rd in snaps. He's running the most routes per game. He has the 2nd most catches per game in the NFL. People were overthinking the McCaffrey thing this season, especially with that report right before the season. That panicked me, definitely for sure. Before the season as well, it seems like that was absolutely nothing. He's got at least 6 catches in every game. Crazy stuff. I think with Jennings and Pearsall both playing, that could go down a little bit, but I mean, the role is just so locked in. It's impossible for him not to project as running back 1, almost regardless of who they're playing. My favorite prop in this one is the Juwan Jennings over, though. We saw one game from Juwan Jennings this season where he played over 80% of the snaps. That was with Mac Jones. He went 5 catches, 89 yards in that game. He got hurt in week 1 as well. I don't think he finished that game in week 1, if I recall. He might have finished the game. 5 catches, 89 yards. If he's actually playing a full role, he's going over this line, 43.5 yards. Pearsall's line is closer to 60 yards. I think those should probably be a little closer together. The one game where we really saw a fully healthy Jennings playing alongside Pearsall, it was Jennings, not Pearsall, that led the team in receiving. Finishes a top 12 wide receiver that week. Yeah, I do like Jennings here in his prop line. Go to the QB rankings. I got you. What do you think of Xavier Worthy? I don't think you can start Xavier Worthy right now. On the Jaguar side of this game, we talked about Brian Thomas Jr. already on this live stream and some of the Ireland time start sit questions earlier. But man, is Brian Thomas Jr. down bad right now? Guys, his catch rate is one of the worst I've ever seen. It's hard for the panic meter not to be extremely high for Brian Thomas Jr. right now. 28% catch rate. That's 126th in the NFL. I mean, this has to be dead last. It has to be dead last among all receivers with any amount of real volume of targets, like over 10 targets this season. Brian Thomas Jr.'s got to be dead last in catch rate. 28% is a complete joke. Complete joke. And there's no way that it stays this bad. There's no way a receiver this talented is going to finish the season with a 28% catch rate. Even under a 50% catch rate, honestly, would be pretty shocking to me by the end of the season. But that being said, Parker Washington, he was the number 1 receiver last week. Brian Thomas Jr., he not only is he not catching the targets he's getting, he's not getting enough targets. 16% target share for Brian Thomas Jr. last week. That was compared to a target share for Parker Washington at 29%, twice the amount of targets for Parker Washington than Brian Thomas Jr. last week, and he was producing on at least some of those. I still think Brian Thomas Jr. is startable in a lot of situations, but he's definitely not a must start. And there was a start sit earlier that I answered that I think I had Brian Thomas Jr. last. Like Debo, Tet, Quentin Johnston. These are all guys you could consider over Brian Thomas Jr. for sure. We got Tet McMillan projected ahead of him. Debo Samuel is definitely close. Yeah, we got Debo right behind Brian Thomas Jr. Quentin Johnston, I would start over Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. So I think I would go Quentin and Tet. I think Debo's a pretty safe bet. Tet's maybe got a higher ceiling. But with no Terry McLaurin, Debo's definitely startable here too. Debo versus Tet's close, honestly. With Christian Gonzalez back, I wouldn't knock you for going Debo and Quentin here either. But yeah, you're benching Brian Thomas Jr. in a start sit like this. For sure. And I don't think Travis Hunter is startable in fantasy right now. I don't know how you could possibly start Travis Hunter. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. Helps me out a ton. Do appreciate it. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button and come to the YouTube live. I'm telling you, it's a better viewing experience over on YouTube. We're on Ireland time this morning, so we are deep into the live stream already. BTJ is going to break out. It says a TikTok comment. I could see it. I'm not as panicked. I'm not as panicked on almost anyone that people are full panicked on. We're going to get to the Falcons. I think we actually talked about that Falcons game. Yeah, we already talked about that Falcons game already. But guys, teams can have bad games. Like Michael Penix has played 6 career games. Like, can we all take a deep breath for a second with some of these guys this early in the season? Like, we have enough data to react for sure this time of year, but you also don't want to overreact, especially when you have a large sample size from past seasons, like we do with Brian Thomas Jr. Like, Brian Thomas Jr. is still one of the best receivers in the NFL, in my opinion. Is he a must start this week, though? No, he's not a must start this week. Is he a buy low rest of season? Yeah, I think pretty clearly a buy low rest of season. The gap between Travis Etienne and Bashal Tutin is closing, and it's closing pretty fast. DK Metcalf with a huge catch in the Vikings game. I don't know how long that was, but it looked at least 60 yards for DK Metcalf. This Vikings-Steelers game in Ireland is starting to open up here. Still think the Vikings can take this one, but I think they kicked a field goal. I think they're down, what, 14-3 now? Yeah, 14-3. Rodgers is 8 for 8, 65 yards. I actually think that's not even including that last play. Wow. He's going to beat his prop in the first half. So Pearsall's a start. I actually don't mind starting Juwan Jennings. And then Travis Hunter is he's not startable right now. Not startable. The floor is way too low for Travis Hunter right now with all these receivers playing for the Jaguars. He had one catch for 21 yards. Doesn't have a game over 10 points yet. You got to put Travis Hunter on your bench. There's a lot of guys in the NFL right now in this tough situation for fantasy where they are undroppable and unstartable. And Travis Hunter's definitely on that list. ETN, I think, is being a bit overrated in fantasy right now. He started the season super hot, but still doesn't have a game over 20 points. He's in a clear committee backfield as well. Only 54% of the snaps last week. He's seeing a definitely reasonable carry volume. But there's 3 running backs playing for the Jaguars. And LaQuint Allen's coming in on obvious passing downs. Bashal Tutin is in the mix as well. He scored twice now, Bashal Tutin, in the last 2 games. Had a receiving touchdown in week 2 and a rushing touchdown in week 3. Not great for Travis Etienne. I do like the 49ers in this game here versus the Jaguars. And I think they're decent favorites even in Jacksonville. Yeah, 3.5-point favorites. Sorry, this game's in San Francisco. All right, on to the next game here. We got the Colts and the Rams. Puka Nacua projects as wide receiver 1 this week. Puka Nacua is in the conversation as the best receiver in the NFL. That's the conversation Puka Nacua is in right now. Has not had a bad game. It looks like Christian McCaffrey game locks here. Looking at Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, notably, is the only player we just saw this looking at Christian McCaffrey. Puka Nacua is the only player with more catches per game than Christian McCaffrey this season. The Colts have been really good against receivers. Doesn't matter. Does not matter for Puka Nacua at all. He's leading all receivers in points per game at 24.5. Doesn't have a game under 22.5 points. He's first in catches per game. He's first in yards per game. He has only scored 1 touchdown, and it was a rushing touchdown, and he's still number 1 in points per game among receivers. I mean, elite stuff for Puka Nacua. He had a 45% target share last week, up to a 38% target share this season. That's the second highest in the NFL. I think I was going to say Garrett Wilson's the only guy ahead of him at 39%, but the target volume for Garrett Wilson's nowhere near Puka Nacua's. Garrett Wilson is the highest target share in the NFL, but he's only averaging 10 targets a game only. I mean, it's definitely still a lot of targets per game, but yeah, still nowhere near Puka's target total per game, 11.7. Almost 2 targets more for Puka Nacua, despite a lower target share for Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams was questionable for this one with a quad or a hamstring. Yeah, hamstring injury. A little bit concerning for the almost 33-year-old Devontae Adams, but he's going to play, and that means he's a pretty good start. Yeah, DK Metcalf up to 4 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown already in this Ireland game. Wild start to this game. Jordan Mason's at 19 rushing yards. That's it. Carson Wentz doesn't have an incompletion. There's not been an incompletion through the first quarter and a half of this Ireland game between the Vikings and the Steelers. 16 completions, 16 passing attempts, 16 completions. Steelers up 14-3. Gainwell scored a touchdown. He only has 2 carries, though. Rodgers is 9 for 9 with 145 yards. Wow. Jefferson's got 5 for 43. He's probably going to have a big game, too, with the Vikings trailing here. Caleb Johnson did get a carry, only had 2 yards on that. Gainwell's got 2 catches as well. Pretty good start for Gainwell and for DK Metcalf and for the Steelers and Rodgers. So yeah, Puka projects as wide receiver 1. He's going to project as wide receiver 1 really every week with the type of role he's in. The Colts are 3.5-point underdogs here, though. That's a little surprising to me. They're in Los Angeles for this game, but the Rams have probably the least home field advantage in the NFL. They don't have a real home field advantage. They don't have a real home field advantage like a lot of the teams in the NFL. Daniel Jones is a must start in this matchup. Let's move to the Colts side of this game. The Colts offense has been absolute wagon this season. There's no stopping the Colts offense, no matter who they play. Daniel Jones is playing at an elite level right now. They're scheming really, really well with Daniel Jones. Only had 15.8 last week. Didn't score a rushing touchdown for the first time this season. But yeah, Daniel Jones in must-start territory here among the quarterbacks. Let me switch to the quarterback rankings. Can't believe you put DK that low. Love the Island Time games, man. Shout out to everyone in the YouTube live right now, by the way. Make sure you smash the like button. Helps it out a ton. Do appreciate it. Let's hop over to the QB ranks here. Yeah, we got Daniel Jones at QB7 on the week. DK had over 9.5 on that one play. Yeah, pretty crazy. Definitely what DK Metcalf is capable of. Blake Corum is my favorite player prop in this game. He's been playing really well behind Kyron Williams so far this season, definitely eating into the role. He had a rushing touchdown back in week 2. He's had over 40 rushing yards in back-to-back games now. He's had at least 5 carries in back-to-back games. They're favored in this spot too. His prop line should probably be a solid like 8 to 9 yards higher than this for Blake Corum. 21.5 rushing yards. Should pull up the tight end ranks. I got you with the tight end ranks. Chase Brown or Gainwell? I'm seeing a question for Chase Brown or Gainwell in the TikTok live. I told you guys we're going to get these questions. Guys, we're on Ireland time this morning. It is almost halftime in the Steelers-Vikings game. It is too late to make the Gainwell or the Jalen Warren or the DK Metcalf start sits. DK Metcalf's popping off. Gainwell already scored a touchdown. Hopefully you started Gainwell. I probably would have told you to start Chase Brown, though, if you were in the live stream earlier. All right. I do think the Colts cover the spread here, have a real chance to win versus the Rams. And Corum's the favorite player prop in that one. On to the next game here. We're almost through all the games. We're in the late window now. Really fun one here versus the Ravens and the Chiefs. Both these teams, the Ravens and the Chiefs, are 1-2. One of these teams is going to be 1-3. The Chiefs are underdogs at home in this game. Will the real Travis Kelce please stand up? Man, Travis Kelce has been a rough one for fantasy football. Projects really good again this week. I'm not convinced Travis Kelce is the best tight end on his own team right now, alongside Noah Gray. Doesn't have a game over 13 fantasy points yet this season, despite the Xavier Worthy injury, despite Rashee Rice being suspended. We still haven't seen it from Kelce. Last week especially, I think, was disappointing in a pretty good matchup versus the Giants, but another good matchup here for Kelce, a must-win game at home versus the Ravens. He's pretty much must-start territory. Same thing with Pat Mahomes. I would play Kelce over Juwan Johnson. Oh, God, I think I would. It's close. Honestly, I think we have Juwan Johnson projected ahead. You might have to go Juwan Johnson. Yeah, we do. Yeah, I think it's Juwan Johnson. It's Juwan Johnson over Kelce. He's in a better role. He's getting more targets. Yeah, he's been better basically every single week. No tight ends played more snaps than Juwan Johnson. He's in a top 5 role, like pretty clearly. And again, I'm not even convinced Kelce's the best tight end on his own team. I'm pretty down on Kelce right now. But in most situations, you're starting him. The only tight ends I'm starting over Travis Kelce, Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers, Juwan Johnson, Tyler Warren, end of list. It looks like we might even have, yeah, we have Kelce over Tyler Warren now in the Walter Picks app. That one's pretty close. I think I'd go Tyler Warren over Kelce personally. Yeah, we're starting Mahomes. We're definitely starting Mahomes. The only QBs I'm starting over Mahomes are the 3 elite rushing QBs. I'm starting Mahomes over Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert just has a little bit more risk to me than Mahomes this week because there's a chance that game's really not close. And the Chargers are able to run a lot more than they've been running. There's no chance that the Chiefs are able to like lean on the run heavily this week. I would go Tyreek definitely over Thornton. Xavier Worthy's going to be playing this week. I don't think you can start Xavier Worthy in fantasy. We have to see what the role is really going to be for an injured Xavier Worthy. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. He's already a smaller receiver. He's playing with a sling. underneath his pads, supposedly. We have him projected for a pretty limited role, 13% target share. I think you got to wait and see with Worthy. You can't just throw him in your starting lineup. Even though this is a good matchup on paper, and with Rashee Rice out, I don't think Thornton's a start either, though. I'm seeing some people start Tyquan Thornton questions, and Thornton's been kind of balling. He's been the best receiver for the Chiefs so far this season. Had 18 points last week, 14 points the week before. I still don't feel comfortable starting him, though, especially with Xavier Worthy back. He's startable, but I don't think he's like a must start. I do like the Ravens in this one. I think the Chiefs fall to 1-3 at home. Obviously, we're starting Lamar Jackson. I'm pretty nervous about Mark Andrews. I think he is a bench this week. Oh, man, I had Metcalf on the must-bench list. Rough here on Ireland time. Absolutely rough. QB rankings, it's been an hour. Yeah, I got you the QB ranks. That's what DK Metcalf can do, though, in a single play. My favorite prop in this game is the Worthy under receptions. I think there's just a real chance he's not in like anywhere near his full role in this game. Yeah, on the Ravens side of the ball, Derrick Henry, he had 3 total fumbles in the last 2 seasons. He's got 3 total fumbles in 3 games this season so far. This year, still a must start against the Chiefs. He's really only had 1 good game, Derrick Henry. Looked like he was going to be in for an absolutely massive season. He's had 13 points total since week 1. As usual, he's not catching passes, so if he doesn't score, he's going under 10 points. Last week he scored, he still barely went over 10 points because of the fumble. He only had 12 carries, 11 carries and 12 carries in week 2 and week 3 for Derrick Henry. Mark Andrews, I do not think is startable with Isaiah likely back. Similar to Travis Kelce, I'm not convinced Mark Andrews is the best tight end on his own team. The Chiefs have been pretty good against tight ends this season. We'll see what the role really is for likely in his first game back. It's not even a guarantee that he's going to be playing. But yeah, I do want to bench Mark Andrews this week. All right, we got 4 games left. We got the 2 late window games. Bears, Raiders. We'll talk about the Packers, Cowboys, Jets, Dolphins, Bengals, Broncos, and then we will get to so many start sit questions. We're going to have Shay joining the live stream here, our Lions creator, coming up soon too. And the Vikings turn the ball over again. I actually don't think that last turnover stood. That the fumble that was returned for a touchdown didn't stand. That looked like a Carson Wentz interception, though. The Steelers are in full control of this game right now. Couldn't have been more wrong so far about this Ireland time game. Liked the Vikings in this spot. I think Jordan Mason still has a shot at his rushing prop, but the game script's definitely not looking good for that. Rodgers is popping off. He doesn't have an incompletion. Carson Wentz, I think that might have been his first incompletion. Yeah, 9 carries, 28 yards for Jordan Mason. Not the start we were hoping for. I think that was the first incompletion of the game, if you want to count it as an incompletion. Only 3 total rushing attempts for the Steelers in this one. Had a huge catch by DK Metcalf. He's at 4 catches, 122, and a touchdown already. Very, very crazy start to this Ireland game. All right, on to the Bears-Raiders. The Bears are underdogs in this one. Someone explain this to me. Chat. Someone explain to me why the Bears are underdogs in this game. I mean, I think clearly the better team. I know the Bears defense has been bad. The Raiders defense has also been bad. I mean, this definitely is like really, really strong shootout potential here. This game is tied for the highest over-under of the week between the Bears and the Raiders. Raiders are 1.5-point favorites in this game at home in Las Vegas. Luther Burden, I talked about it earlier. He was my favorite player prop of the week last week. One of my biggest wins of all time, betting-wise. I had Luther Burden's alt lines all the way up to 60 yards and was also on him to score a touchdown last week. There was a lot of coach speak saying he was going to play more, and he did end up playing a bit more and played a bit more of a real role when he was actually on the field. He had a 65-yard touchdown catch, cashed all of his props at once in a single play. Had 3 targets. It was a career high, season high target share, 11%. Snap percentage was also a season high, career high at 29%. Now Colston Loveland is out this week. There's no reason to think Luther Burden doesn't continue to build on this increased role. Caught all 3 of his targets, 101 yards and a touchdown. Guys, Luther Burden is a talented wide receiver. We did our work in the offseason. We were high on Luther Burden before the draft. And if his role continues to grow, he's going to be a good player in the NFL and a good player for fantasy and a really good player for props. And once again, one of my favorite player props this week is Luther Burden over 12.5 receiving yards. After last week, we saw the role grow, and Colston Loveland being out. This prop line rose from 7.5 yards to 12.5 yards. Just again, he's going to be able to beat this prop on a single play very easily in a game that they're underdogs against a bad secondary. So far against this Raiders secondary, we've seen plenty of good performances. Booty went for 103 yards. Stephon Diggs had his best game of the season for 57 yards. Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey, and Trey Harris all went over 30 yards. Debo, only 2 catches, 11 yards last week, but this was with Mariota starting. Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey both went over 50 yards. Chris Moore beat this prop line. Once again, this might be my favorite player prop of the week. This one in the Judkins line, the rushing line for Judkins, probably my 2 favorite props of the week. But 2 official props on the live stream today are going to be Luther Burden over 12.5 receiving yards and Quinshaw Judkins over 55.5 rushing yards. And again, I'm going to be laddering up these Luther Burden props. They're not going to be quite as lucrative as last week because the Bucs got absolutely crushed by those last week. But still, they only adjusted this line up 5 yards after last week. And I really do think Colston Loveland being out definitely helps Cole Kmet the most, but definitely sneaky here benefit to Luther Burden as well. I think we're going to see him grow again in snap percentage, grow again potentially in target share. And that's what we're projecting in the app. 3.5 targets for Luther Burden, going to be more than enough to get 12.5 yards. So yeah, I'm in on Luther Burden again this week. I think the Bears win this game. I'm pretty surprised that they are underdogs. On the other side of this game, let me just touch on the rest of the Bears players here. I do think DJ Moore is startable this week. It's a good matchup for him too. Does not project great though. He has not really had a great role this season. No games over 13 fantasy points yet. His target shares have been pretty uninspiring. Hasn't had a 20% target share yet this season. Definitely capable of a big game though. Honestly, this looks like kind of similar to the DK Metcalf situation before the Steelers game. We know DJ Moore's a very good receiver, really good after the catch, good matchup. I mean, honestly, DK Metcalf's not even in a good matchup here versus the Vikings, still popping off. But DJ Moore's capable of making one big play and really changing the narrative in a given week. Definitely capable of that. But not a must-start play by any means. Rome Odunze is the must-start wide receiver on this team, and I do want to start Caleb Williams right now as well. Coming off a 29-point game against the Cowboys. But he's had at least 18 points in every game. He's running more than people expected as well. He's got a really good stretch of games coming up, matchup-wise. And the Bears have a bye week. Got the bye week starting next week. DeAndre Swift is startable here as well. He was questionable for this game. I would play Daniel Jones, over Baker Mayfield, seeing that one in the TikTok Live. On the Raiders side of this game, a lot of guys I want to start here too. The Bears defense has been bad. Brock Bowers. To me, he is the clear tight end 1 this week. He projects as tight end 2 right now in the app behind Jake Ferguson, whose prop line is at 6.5 receptions. Crazy stuff for Jake Fergo. He's also just a PPR scam, PPR cheat code right now. But Brock Bowers without Michael Mayer, I am not benching Brock Bowers. I think he could really explode this week. Hasn't had a touchdown yet this season. He's been banged up a little bit, but still played through the injury last week, had 4 catches for 38 yards. He's back-to-back games with only 38 yards. I think we see a game more similar to week 1. He probably gets in the end zone this week as well. I feel pretty good about Brock Bowers. This week he's in my DraftKings lineup that I'll pull up shortly. Geno Smith definitely startable here as well. Why Knicks over Love? I like the Packers game script more. I'm fine going Love over Knicks. Totally fine with that. The only fear for the Packers is if they're going to be forced to throw enough. But yeah, I like Jordan Love a ton against the Cowboys. Really, really safe bet versus the Cowboys. Ashton Genty, for me, my Ashton Genty panic meter is very low. I'm not panicked on Ashton Genty. He's had 2 pretty difficult matchups. Did okay versus the Pats. That was his first game. The biggest concern for Ashton Genty is just the receiving role. The fact that they're playing Zamir White at all is pretty shocking. The fact that they're giving him targets is even more shocking. I know the efficiency has been bad for Genty. He's been hit behind the line of scrimmage a ton. I think only Chase Brown has worse yards before first contact. They're both negative in yards before first contact. Like they're frequently, on average, they're getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, Genty and Chase Brown. But guys, you don't draft a guy as early as the Raiders drafted him to not give him the ball a ton. He's 14th in snaps among all running backs. He's 6th in rush share. And he's got a really good matchup coming up. Better matchups, I think, really over the next month than he's had in the opening start of the season outside of that matchup versus Pats. I'm not fully panicking on Genty. I think he is a capable receiving back too, and hopefully they get him more involved in the receiving game. If they do, he can be a top 12 running back in fantasy still. And I think he's like in must-start territory here in week 4. I like the Bears in this game, though. And Trey Tucker, I know there's going to be a lot of Trey Tucker starts. He's a boom bust. He's a boom bust option, guys. He meshes really well with Geno Smith. He had a 41-point game last week. I believe that's the biggest game of the season so far for anyone. Like, he's already an amazing best ball pick for those of you in the best ball streets. Like, already a smash best ball pick at his cost this season. This is exactly what you need in best ball. These huge, huge, huge games. They can really, really give you leverage in best ball where we don't need to make these start-sit decisions. And yeah, he's going to have a huge ceiling. This is going to be his biggest game of the season, almost definitely. But he could definitely have more 20-plus point games. He's startable. If you're searching for an elite ceiling, Trey Tucker definitely can give you that. But yeah, he's going to project still worse than Jacoby Myers, who I like a lot this week too, and it's an absolute must start. All right, onto the Packers-Cowboys game. I really want pieces of this Packers passing attack. And we just had a question in the live about Jordan Love versus Bo Nix. I'm fine going Jordan Love over Bo Nix. I'm fine going Jordan Love over Daniel Jones. I don't think I'd go Jordan Love over Justin Herbert. But this Packers defense, this Cowboys defense has been atrocious. Just terrible. By far dead last in the NFL when it comes to points allowed to quarterbacks. We saw 24 points from Jalen Hurts, 31 points from Russell Wilson, and then 29 points from Caleb Williams. We have not seen a QB finish outside the top 8 quarterbacks when playing the Cowboys this season. They're allowing 300 passing yards per game and 2.3 passing touchdowns per game. 32nd and 30th in the NFL. So yeah, you can feel pretty good starting Jordan Love this week for sure. The biggest question mark for Jordan Love is just, will they have to throw the ball enough? If not, we could see a little bit of a disappointment from Jordan Love, but still it's probably going to be multiple passing touchdowns for Jordan Love in this game. Like, the over-under for passing touchdowns should probably be set at around 2.5 for Jordan Love this week. I like all the pass catchers for the Packers for that reason too. Tucker Kraft, I feel pretty good starting. Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, and Matthew Golden, I think all have like really high ceilings this week against the Cowboys. This secondary is just atrocious. They're dealing with injuries on top of the bad secondary to begin with. Malik Neighbors went for 38 points. Wan'Dale Robinson went for 28 points. We were on Luther Burden last week breaking out. He did that. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, both went over 12 points. And the Eagles just didn't even need to throw. Guys, the Eagles literally did not throw in week 1, and still the Cowboys are allowing the most points per game to receivers this season, the most receiving yards per game to receivers this season, the second most touchdowns per game to receivers this season, when Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown against the Cowboys in week 1 combined for 4 catches and 24 yards. That's how bad the Cowboys have been in those last 2 games. So yeah, I'm in on a Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden as pretty high ceiling flex plays this week. And Josh Jacobs obviously needs to be started. Josh Jacobs is my favorite player prop in this game. I do not think the Cowboys are going to be able to keep up with the Packers. That's going to be plenty of rushing volume for Josh Jacobs, who's 3rd in the NFL right now in carries per game. And we've already seen multiple running backs beat this line versus the Cowboys. That's actually incorrect. Saquon only had 60 yards. Scatterbo had 45. DeAndre Swift had 33. So yeah, I think Josh Jacobs will be the first running back to go over 72.5 rushing yards here versus the Cowboys. I do not think, too, you want to underrate this Micah Parsons revenge game. The Packers defense is going to eat the Cowboys in this game. I'm pretty nervous for the whole Cowboys offense. George Pickens projects really well. Jake Ferguson projects amazing. His prop line's at 6.5 receptions. He projects his tight end one over Brock Bowers, who I personally would start over Jake Ferguson this week, but he's right in that tier with Brock Bowers right now here in week 4 with no CeeDee Lamb in this game. George Pickens, it's really hard to not project him well with CeeDee Lamb out. But I do not feel great about this Cowboys offense against this Packers defense. We could, I think, really see the Cowboys offense greater in this matchup. But yeah, George Pickens still in must-start territory, given the game environment and the injury to CeeDee Lamb. And Jake Ferguson's pretty much unbenchable. Javonte Williams, not a guy you can start. Javonte Williams is really in a must-bench territory. Go to the running back ranks here. both the running back ranks here on the YouTube live as well. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. It is the best day of the week, man. We already are off to the races on Ireland time today. I think it's halftime in this game now. No, 2-minute warning. Yeah, 2-minute warning. Steelers have the ball, 4th and 2 on the Minnesota 15. We've seen 3 incompletions this entire game. Rodgers is balling. Kenneth Gainwell's having a decent outing as well, almost 5 yards per carry and a touchdown. DK Metcalf absolutely popping off here. 4 catches, 122 and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, not a bad first half either. I'm taking the Packers in this one, though, for sure. The Packers are 6.5-point favorites in Dallas today. I like the Packers a lot to cover that spread and to crush the Cowboys. I think they're way better defensively and they're better offensively in the spot. All right, we got, I think, just 2 more games. We got 2 Monday night games again this week. This is the night game, I think, this Packers-Cowboys game. Yeah, night game tonight. Should be a fun one. Then we get the Jets and Dolphins on Monday night. Justin Fields is returning in a great matchup. The Dolphins have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Like, this is really one of the defenses you want to try to exploit in fantasy football. And we got Justin Fields coming back off the concussion. Had a horrible week 2 versus the Bills, but now he gets the Dolphins. They're 2nd worst in points per game allowed to quarterbacks, and they've allowed some good rushing performances as well. Daniel Jones, he ran for 2 touchdowns, 26 yards. Drake May ran for a rushing touchdown. At least 25 rushing yards per game. They played Daniel Jones, Drake May, and Josh Allen, though. But yeah, they're allowing the 2nd most points per game. We haven't seen a QB go under 23 fantasy points against the Dolphins yet. So yeah, I think Justin Fields is a pretty good start this week. Somewhat risky coming off the concussion. Will he run as much as usual? I think he kind of has to. Like, Justin Fields doesn't really have a choice. He has to run. My favorite player prop in this game is Braylon Allen over 17.5 rush yards. If he gets anywhere near the carry volume he's gotten the last 2 games, I think he can hit this pretty easily. He had 6 carries last week, 6 carries in week 1. We need 6 carries. He's easily hitting this with 6 carries in this matchup versus the Dolphins that they've had a really, really weak defense. Allowing 4.5 yards per carry to running backs this season. Basically every running back with volume against this Dolphins defense has beaten this line. DJ Giddens did it. He only had 12 carries. Ramondre did it with 11. Antonio Gibson had 5 carries. He had 27 yards. I think every running back with at least 5 carries. Yeah, every running back with at least 5 carries has beat this line. So yeah, I like this Braylon Allen rushing line. This game has really sneaky shootout potential between the Jets and the Dolphins. The Jets defense has also been really bad. Breece Hall is a must start in this spot. I think Mason Taylor is a bit of a sleeper this week as well. Garrett Wilson obviously needs to be started here also. And then on the Dolphins side of the game, I mean, you're starting the studs in the game. Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, both must starts here in week 4. Tua can't really be trusted. And Jalen Waddle startable as well. The Jets defense has not been good this season. One of the worst defenses in the NFL so far this season. DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin both went over 12 points. Like Buka and Evans and Shepard all went over 12 points. That game versus the Bills was not a real game. Game was over before it started, basically. They were able to run the ball like crazy against the Dolphins. And I won't be surprised if the Jets are able to do the same thing. Sorry, the matchup versus the Jets was over before it started really against the Bills. And teams have been able to run it pretty effectively against the Jets as well. They ranked 20th versus running backs this season in terms of fantasy points per game allowed. James Cook accounted for most of that. But Devon Achane, he's like not that far behind Christian McCaffrey in terms of his receiving role, which is crazy to say. Only McCaffrey and Gibbs are ahead of Devon Achane in catches per game. He's actually tied with Gibbs with 6 catches per game. Playing like almost a wide receiver role here for the Dolphins. He's playing the 3rd highest snap percentage in the league as well at running back. Crazy stuff. Guys, we are just getting started here on the live stream today. We got Shay joining the live here coming up in about 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to get to tons and tons and tons of start-sit questions here coming up shortly as well. Can we see wide receiver? Yeah, I got you. Definitely had DK Metcalf ranked too low for this game. A lot of that came on one big play. He beat his projection in one play in this game. All right, we got the last game of the week, Bengals versus Broncos. The Jake Browning panic meter, to me, is a lot lower than I think most people out there. It was a tough matchup last week versus the Vikings. This game was over before it started. The Vikings matchup looks a little bit better now. I mean, a little bit worse now, depending on how you want to frame it. With his game versus the Steelers, Rodgers is absolutely slicing them up. But they have been really good versus quarterbacks so far this season. Another tough matchup here, though, for Browning. But then the schedule does get a little bit easier, especially after this Packers game. I still think Browning has the chance to be a top 20 quarterback rest of the season, be pretty serviceable for both Chase and T. Higgins. But T. Higgins really can't be started right now. Pretty much a must bench this week in most situations. We're going to get to the start sits here coming up. But I don't know how we trust T. Higgins in the starting lineup right now. Chase Brown, we talked about it earlier in the live, might be the least efficient running back in the NFL. He's averaging 2 yards per carry and under 6 yards per catch. He's dead last in yards before first contact, negative yards before first contact. The offensive line's atrocious, and he's just not a talented enough player to do anything when the offensive line's this bad. He's been under 3 yards per carry every single game. He's had some pretty tough matchups, to be fair, but 10 carries for 3 yards last week. He's at 5.4 yards per reception and 2 yards per carry. Just atrocious. The one hope for Chase Brown is the target share last week was 19% with Browning. That was a season high. We might see Browning dump it off more than Joe Burrow did. That could be good for Chase Brown, but he might be the least efficient running back in the NFL this season. He is right now so far this season. J.K. Dobbins, he's a must start in this spot. He's my favorite player prop in this game. Dobbins over 14.5 rushing attempts in a really good matchup here versus the Bengals. I like Cortland Sutton a lot this week as well. The whole offense should perform pretty well. Bo Nix projects really well. I think I probably would go Jordan Love over Bo Nix if I had to make that call with how Bo Nix has played so far this season, but a really good spot for the Broncos offense to get on track here against this Bengals defense. We have not seen a starting running back go under 16 fantasy points against the Bengals yet. 116 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jordan Mason last week. Tight end chart, I got you. Yeah, DK Metcalf is balling out for sure. An early L in the wide receiver ranks this week for me. I like RJ Harvey as a sleeper this week too. He only had 2 rushing yards last week. Did have 3 catches for 14 yards. Only played 29% of the snaps. 9.5% rush share. 13% target share was his highest of the season. And Tyler Bidet barely played. The matchup's obviously really good, especially if the Broncos can get a lead in this game, which is very, very likely. They're 7.5 point favorites, 8.5 point favorites now at home. So it could be an interesting game environment for RJ Harvey. Not a guy you are going to start in many fantasy situations. But yeah, Dobbins is an absolute must start right now. All right, that is every single game. My take on every single game, my favorite player prop in every single game, and the must starts, the must benches for every fantasy relevant guy in every single game. And we're just getting started here, guys, on the Sunday morning live stream. Shout out to everybody who's been in this live the whole time. Shout out to everybody listening to this live while watching the Ireland time game between the Vikings and the Steelers. We're about to be at halftime. Perfect timing for halftime here. I'm going to talk through the DraftKings lineup, and then we're going to get to the start-sit segment of this live stream. We actually started with a Ireland time start-sit segment at the beginning of this live stream, and we're going to get back to the start-sit segment here coming up momentarily. Let me talk through my 2 favorite player props of the day, the 2 official props of the live today. Luther Burden over 12.5 receiving yards. We're going back to the well with Luther Burden, who is going to see at least the role he saw last week. No guarantee he's going to see a 70-yard flea flicker deep pass attempt. But with Colston Loveland out for the Bears, no reason to expect he goes under 3 targets this week. They're setting his line at 12.5. A very talented receiver who's lined at 12.5 receiving yards. So I like that probably the most again of all the props this week. And then I also really like Judkins' line at 55.5 rushing yards as well. He's hit this in both games. The Lions defensive line is good, but so is the Packers defensive line, guys. He went for 94 rushing yards on 18 carries. Even if the Browns fall back in this game by a lot, they're losing by a lot, I think the floor for Judkins is like 13, 14, 15 carries. Like he's going to be the most efficient guy to go to in this offense. He's over 5 yards per carry in both games. And I think this game could be a lot closer than people expect too, with the Browns defense playing like it's playing. So Judkins, Luther Burden, yards, overs my 2 official and favorite player props of the week, on top of all the favorite player props I gave for each game. The DraftKings lineup today, we're going with the Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith stack, bringing it back with Emeka Egbuka. Not convinced Chris Godwin is going to be in a full role, a super relevant role here in his first game back, coming off a really significant injury. We have him projected behind Sterling Shepard right now. Definitely a wide range of outcomes for Godwin, but he's almost 30 years old. He's coming off a really brutal leg injury. And Egbuka's been balling. He's been playing through an injury himself, but last week, 6 catches, 85 yards, didn't score for the first time, only played 64% of the snaps, but he's got a career-high season-high 29% target share. There's no Mike Evans in this game. He's going to be playing from behind. I like the stack here with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. I'm playing Drake London, Jacoby Myers, both project as top 12 wide receivers. You're going with 2 rookie running backs in Hampton and getting Judkins in this lineup as well. And I'm paying up for the top tight end on the slate, Brock Bowers, who I think could absolutely break the slate. He's not priced that much higher than the other tight ends on DraftKings right now. He's capable of a 30-point game here in week 4. And then I'm playing with the Falcons defense against Mariota and no Terry McLaurin. That's the DK lineup. We did not cash last week because we went with the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens stack that obviously did not work out for us. But we did cash the previous 2 weeks. So we're 2 for 3 and really an injury-related L last week for the DK line. All right, let's get to the start-sit segment of the live stream. I'm going to answer a ton of start-sit questions here moving forward. Happy Football Sunday to all of you. The best day of the week, man. Appreciate you guys spending some time with me on the Sunday morning. All right, Scatterbo versus Judkins. Yeah, this is a good one to jump to. Let's go to the running back ranks here. I've had the running back ranks up for a little while. Ooh, really quick, before I get to the Scatterbo versus Judkins question. Weatherman Sam, he's here for you all season long. No concerning weather today. The 2 reports, there's a chance of rain in the Eagles-Bucs game and the Bengals-Broncos game tomorrow night. Not concerned about the chance of rain. Not going to impact the game at all. There's also 10 to 15 mile an hour wind, sustained wind, and 20 mile an hour wind gusts in the Jets-Dolphins game tomorrow. I'm not concerned about this at all. Either does not pass the 25 mile an hour wind threshold that gets us concerned. The wind gusts aren't even at 25 miles an hour. So yeah, just not concerned at all about any of the weather. Don't be surprised if you see some rain in the Eagles-Bucs game, Bengals-Broncos game, but otherwise not concerned at all. All right, let's get to this start-sit question here, and then I'll get to this one next on the YouTube Live. I'm going to answer tons and tons and tons of start-sit questions here across the rest of the live stream. And we're going to have a guest joining as well to help answer some of them coming up here shortly as well. All right, we got Scatterbo and Judkins. Both guys I like this week as well. I think you kind of have to go with Scatterbo. Yeah, in a PPR league, you go with Scatterbo. I think Judkins is the better running back overall. Slightly better matchup, at least in terms of the numbers so far this season. But with no Tyrone Tracy, the receiving role for Scatterbo is definitely better than the receiving role for Judkins. Yeah, I think I agree with Walter here. I'd go Scatterbo over Judkins. Do like that Judkins rushing prop line. When is it Calvin Ridley's time? It might not be this week. It really might not be this week. Another kind of tough matchup here versus the Texans. Yeah, Ridley's really not an easy start this week. Been here the whole time. Appreciate you, man. Start 2, Garrett Wilson, Jacoby Myers, Sutton, and Ladd. You can't bench Garrett Wilson versus the Dolphins. He's leading the NFL in target share. Jacoby Myers is also a really tough guy to bench. All these guys are pretty good options, though. Like, you don't have bad options here. I do not want to bench Ladd at all. I think it's, yeah, you got to go Ladd. You got to go Ladd and Garrett Wilson. I'm not benching Ladd, man. With how good the Chargers passing attack has been, with how much they are passing, I'm pretty bullish on Ladd McConkey, despite him doing worse than Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson so far this season. Jordan, Sam, tough decisions this week. Standard scoring pick 2, Judkins, Bucky, Henderson, Jamar Chase. You can't start Henderson in a start-sit like this, Jordan. I mean, I was sweating a Trevian Henderson, Kenneth Gainwell start-sit, just an hour or 2 ago. And I made the wrong call, I think, going Henderson. But yeah, you're going with Judkins and Bucky Irving here. In a standard league, I think you probably lean Judkins and Bucky Irving over Jamar Chase. And then Juwan or Kincaid as Juwan Johnson. Fields or Nix. I think you go Bo Nix over Justin Fields. A little bit nervous about how much Fields is going to run coming off the concussion. I think he kind of needs to run with the way he plays. But yeah, I'm fine going Bo Nix over him. Jawan or Henry. We're not benching Jawan Johnson, guys. You can't bench Jawan Johnson. Let me pull up the tight end ranks here. Jawan Johnson has one of the best roles in the entire NFL. He leads all tight ends in snaps. He's top 5 in targets and target share. He really hasn't had a bad fantasy game yet. He's been a top 10 tight end, a top 9 tight end every single game. He only has 1 touchdown. These are the types of guys you want in fantasy. We talk about this every single week. You want the guys that can produce top 10 outcomes at their position without touchdowns. That's exactly what Jawan Johnson's doing. He's 2nd in catches per game. He's 4th in receiving yards per game. He's a 14.5-point underdog with the Saints today. I mean, they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. No tight ends playing a higher snap percentage or a higher snap count than Jawan Johnson right now. I know Hunter Henry's coming off a huge game, but yeah, I'm going Jawan. Debo or Zay in PPR? Yeah, I think I lean towards Zay over Debo. Hit the like button. Appreciate that. Yeah, smash the like button, guys. If you're watching live on YouTube. Avery's doing a live stream every single Thursday night. Seth's doing a live stream every single Wednesday night. I heard chatter out there that Avery's live stream is setting the record for the most likes on the live. Guys, we can't let that happen. We cannot let the Sunday morning live get beat by the Thursday night live. So smash the like button to make sure we set the record straight there. Do appreciate it. It takes 2 seconds. Seriously, it takes 2 seconds to hit the like button if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're watching live on TikTok, I'm telling you, better viewing experience over on the YouTube live. Golden or Myers at flex? Yeah, I'm going Myers over Golden. I've seen a lot of Golden questions. I want to start the Packers receivers today against the Cowboys, but I'm not going to force it, especially if I have Jacoby Myers. DJ Moore, Pickens, Igbuka, BTJ, Golden. Yeah, it's Pickens and Igbuka here. You're benching DJ Moore, you're benching BTJ, you're benching Golden, you're playing George Pickens, you're playing Emeka Egbuka. The other thing I'll say, talked about it here. Jordan Mason is definitely selling really hard so far. The other thing I'll say, I did this last week. It definitely helped out a lot. I'm going to prioritize the start-sit questions where you let me know what the Walter Picks app thinks first. It's going to help me answer more start-sit questions in total, give you my thoughts on it, and save me some time in looking up every single start-sit in the Walter Picks app also. I'll still pull up a ton of them in the app, of course. But guys, it's free to see just the projected points in the Walter Picks app for all your start-sit questions. It's a free app. There's some premium insights you'll get with the subscription. It's well worth it if you're actually serious about trying to win your fantasy league. That comes with a 7-day free trial if you haven't tried it yet. Yeah, let me know in your comment what the Walter Picks app thinks for your start-sit question, then I'll give you my thoughts on the start-sit question. Curtis, been here since before the Ireland game. Shout out to you, man. Yeah, shout out to all you guys who are spending some time on the live stream today while we got an actual football game going on, doing the dual screen. Appreciate you a ton. Best day of the week, 100%. Hall or Judkins in PPR? Yeah, you can't bench Breece Hall against the Dolphins. There's no doing it. You can't do it. The Dolphins defense has been so bad. I'm in on Judkins today. What I would do here, I'd take the Judkins prop over 55.5 rush yards. Still root for Judkins. But you got to be riding Breece Hall in fantasy for sure. He's probably going to get less carries, like less total carries than Judkins. I think he said less. He matched the total carries for Judkins in week 2. He had half the carries of Judkins in week 3. But the target share and the receiving work for Breece Hall is definitely way better. Breece Hall is the second best receiver the Jets have after Garrett Wilson. He's the second best receiver the Jets have. And yeah, the Dolphins defense has been so bad. You cannot be benching Breece Hall this week. Absolutely not. All right, we're going to have our guest on here momentarily. Shay, our Lions creator, going to be joining us to help answer a ton of start-sit questions. Definitely some really, really difficult start-sits this week. Got an interesting one here in a TikTok live. I actually had a screenshot prepared here on TikTok for this one. And I'm going to pull this up right now. And we're going to bring Shay on, and he's going to help think through this start-sit decision. A lot of really tough, close start-sits this week for sure. All right, let's bring Shay up here on the live for our third guest on Sunday Morning Lives. Shay, Lions got Walter Picks, man. How are we doing on this beautiful Sunday morning?
Man, I'm feeling amazing. Week 4, I think it's a turning point in the season. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. Happy to answer some start-sit questions.
100%, Shay. You're here filling big shoes from our first 2 guests. Both who came on did a pretty good job. Both did a decent job trying to convince me to bench TreVeyon Henderson. So we'll see if you can do the same later in the live. But we got an interesting one here from the TikTok live. I'll pull it up. Actually, I've already pulled it up on the YouTube live here in the app as well. Daniel Jones versus Jordan Love. I was saying I agree like a turning point here in week 4. We have a lot of data now heading into week 4. It's still a somewhat small sample size, but we got enough data to make some pretty informed decisions now. And one of the data points that I feel very confident in is how bad this Cowboys secondary is. I mean, it's just one of the most bankable matchups in all fantasy football. I think it's pretty reasonable, personally, to go Jordan Love here over Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones has been balling, man. MVP level balling. He ranks right now, I think, still as QB. He's QB4 on the season, 22.7 points per game. Certainly above Jordan Love so far this season. I think I'd lean Jordan Love here. But Shay, I'm interested to hear what you think on this.
This may be biased. I mean, if you guys have been following the Walter Picks League, you would know I actually took Daniel Jones in the 7th round. So this may be biased, but I'm going Daniel Jones. I think he offers a lot more rushing upside than people realize. I mean, if you've been watching the Colts games, you would see they have a couple design runs every single game for Daniel Jones. They have a couple QB sneaks every game for Daniel Jones. So for me, I would go Daniel Jones. And also a game against the Rams that currently, I don't know if the line shifted. It has the highest over-under the entire week. I think it's going to be a shootout, and that's actually one of my bold takes. I'll save that for later. But, yeah, I like the Colts this week, and I like Daniel Jones.
Yeah, totally reasonable. He has as many rushing touchdowns as passing touchdowns so far this season. He's got 3 of each. The only QBs with more rushing touchdowns than him, Jalen Hurts and Mariota, who's played 1 game. He's actually tied with Mariota and Fields. Both of them haven't even played every single game. But, yeah, up there, he's like right behind Jalen Hurts in terms of the tush-push potential for Daniel Jones and in the rushing touchdown potential. Only Jalen Hurts has more. Yeah, I mentioned when I talked through this game earlier, does have last I looked, it was tied for the highest over-under of the week. I think it was right up there with the Packers Cowboys. Actually, it's above the Packers Cowboys, just up there with the Ravens and the Chiefs. Both them at 49.5 total points, unless it's moved since I looked this morning. But yeah, up there with the Ravens Chiefs. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about that Colts game. I still love the game environment for Jordan Love, but I agree. I think the floor is probably a little bit safer with Daniel Jones because of the rushing. I mean, you just look at the matchup tab though against the Cowboys, man. I mean, you're looking at an elite quarterback 1 if you just play the quarterbacks against the Dallas Cowboys. They played Jalen Hurts. He actually had the worst fantasy game against them. He barely had to throw against them in that game. It was a little bit of a weird week 1 opening game, but 24 points. Then Russ goes for an all-time Russ game with 31 points. Caleb Williams last week was the QB1 versus the Cowboys. But I do think there's also potential this game's not close, and the Packers can really lean on the run, especially if the Packers defense in the revenge game there is for Micah Parsons is as bad as it might be for the Cowboys offense. So totally reasonable. I lean Jordan Love. Shay leans Daniel Jones. In the chat, let us know which one you agree with, Daniel Jones or Jordan Love there for the person that asked this in the TikTok live. And you guys can do start sits like this yourself as well, of course, in the Walter Picks app. And I mentioned it earlier before you just jumped on, Shay, but we're going to try to prioritize the start sits that come through where they let us know what the Walter Picks app is projecting first. So then we can give our takes and try to get to as many start sits as we possibly can get to. All right, let's get to this one here next. I think the George Pickens ones are pretty tough, at least for me this week, because he projects so well. But I think there's a little bit more risk than the projections suggest. All right, we got George Pickens, Pittman, and Chuba Hubbard here.
Ooh.
We need to bench one of these guys. I'm going to let you go first on this one. And Walter says Pittman and Pickens. Appreciate you, Adrian, letting us know what the Walter Picks app says first. And can you throw a couple good defenses to start over Baltimore? We'll get to the starts it here first. But yeah, do you agree with going the 2 receivers here?
For me, Pittman is a must start this week. If you're in the TikTok live, you know I have Pittman on a must start, and it's because Alec Pierce is actually out this week with the concussion. I think Pittman's going to get more deep work. Pittman's actually, let me look it up on the Walter Picks app, but last time I checked, Pittman actually has a decent slot percentage rate as well, which I think gives him a pretty safe floor. He's averaging, I think no one's talking about it. He's quietly averaging 15.8 fantasy points per game, guys. And before last week or week 2, for me, I would go the 2 receivers. It's just, I would definitely start Pittman. I would actually go Pittman over Pickens, and it would be between Hubbard and Pickens for me. Because, you can say Pickens is the wide receiver 1, but I think it's Jake Ferguson. I mean, 13 catches last week. But with Chuba dealing with the injury, what is it? It's a knee injury?
Yeah, I think it was a knee, a calf injury. Yeah.
Calf. Oh, see, that's even scarier. For me, I would go the 2 receivers.
Yeah, I think I agree. The other kind of scary thing for me with Chuba Hubbard, snap percentage declined a bit last week, and he's losing. I think Rico Dowdle scored last week and is stealing some of the receiving work as well. This is exactly what I was. Yeah, he did. He scored a rushing touchdown like at the goal line last week. Played 40% of the snaps. He also got one target. He's still on at least one target in every single game. He had 10 carries last week. That was a weird game. Obviously, last week against the Falcons, they were up 30-0 in that game. So I don't think we'll see that in game environment. I was pretty surprised, dude. The Pats are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I don't know how they're getting that much respect in the betting markets right now, especially off of last week with the Panthers. But I think I agree. I would probably bench Chuba Hubbard in this spot as well. And I feel really good about Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, it feels like we have flip-flopped from last year where Downs was sort of the wide receiver one for this team with Anthony Richardson. It's back to Michael Pittman being the wide receiver one in this offense. Yeah, really underrated start to his season. He's a top 12 wide receiver. He's a wide receiver one in fantasy football right now. And that's not just off some really efficient games and touchdowns. He's also top 12 in catches per game. Clearly a go-to guy, for Daniel Jones. And
top 11 in yards per route run as well. Like, let's not brush this aside. He's not exactly touchdown dependent. I think he could get you 15 points without a touchdown today. Yeah,
and then you said you would start Pittman over Pickens too, which I think is definitely interesting and close. Pickens has scored in back-to-back games. He's had pretty easy matchups the last two games, though, versus the Giants and the Bears. Back-to-back games, the exact same fantasy point total for George Pickens. He's been a top 15 receiver in back-to-back games. But the target share has not been great for Pickens so far this season. Under 21% target share all three games. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb goes down last week. And like you said, it was Jake Ferguson that was the go-to target for Dak Prescott last week. And it's hard to just picture that being much different here against the Packers in the front seven that they're going up against. Like, there's just not going to be much time for Pickens to develop routes downfield. I think he's a little riskier than the rank, but that we have for him. We only have him at a 23% target share in this game, but that equates to 9 targets. There's almost no chance the Packers can run, or the Cowboys can run the ball as well. But I think I agree. I think Pittman's probably a little bit safer. Pickens just hard not to project well with CeeDee.
I'm interested. What's Pickens' boom and bust percentage compared to Pittman?
Yeah, let's check it out.
And guys, if you're in the TikTok live, we are the only app that actually has boom and bust percentages. You can try this out right now with the free trial with code LION. You're missing out. I mean, you can compare any two offensive players in the NFL. So
Pickens has a higher boom and better bust probability. I think I would probably argue that Pittman's floor is higher than Pickens, and the bust probability is probably a little bit lower for Pittman than Pickens. The other piece of this, though, for the Cowboys, there's just no way they're not having to pass in this game. Almost no chance, even with CeeDee Lamb out. I don't see a world where they're playing with a lead in this matchup or able to really run effectively too. So really interesting game environment here. The Packers have not been great for receivers this season, though, because you have to get the ball out so fast against this offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown only had 8.5 points against them. Debo had 17 points, but it was almost all quick dump off passes to him as well. He's the only receiver we've seen go over 10 points versus the Packers. The Browns receivers did absolutely nothing last week too. So definitely I think it's some real risk with Pickens and a ceiling as well. But I think I agree. I think I probably would prefer Pittman over him as well. All right, let's get to another one here. We got to get some Trevion Henderson start sits in so you can try to talk me out of him, Shay. Trevion Henderson, just in case you weren't tuned into the full lives the past few Sundays. I mean, probably my personal biggest L so far in fantasy to start the year. I still have some hope, but he's on the most rosters of any player across the league for me. I took Trevion Henderson in the second round in one of my high stakes leagues, a 14 team league. Yeah, that's what the rest of the league said as well. And now I'm in spots sweating on Sunday morning on week 4. Kenneth Gainwell versus Trevion Henderson starts it. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt versus Trevion Henderson starts it. This is where we're at already with Trevion Henderson. So pretty rough. But let's pull this up late at night here from Nikki in Australia. We got Pearsall.
Right then.
We got Ricky Pearsall, Devontae Smith, and Henderson. I don't think Henderson's really even in play in a start sit like this one. But I'm curious what you think about which receiver you would start here, Pearsall versus Devontae Smith. And I assume you agree that Henderson's really not in play here. I'm curious on your Trevion Henderson thoughts too in general.
Yeah,
I'll let you go first here.
Listen, I'm not going to be the guy to talk you out of starting Trevion Henderson. I'm also a big Trevion Henderson guy. I was more bought in on Hampton. That was looking like an L till last week. But for me, between Pearsall and Devonta, I would actually go Pearsall, because if you looked in the Walter Picks app this morning, guys, you would see under Juwan Jennings' profile in the news, it says he may have a snap count, which I don't love. Pearsall, it doesn't say anything like that for him. For that reason, now with Purdy back as well, in against a Jags secondary that that hasn't been great, I would personally go Pearsall. If you have any of those Eagles receivers on your team, I would be looking to sell high after the week they just had. Like, that's what you should have already been doing, because week to week, I don't feel comfortable, that they're going to get me a consistent fantasy point production.
Yeah, I did. I'm just reading this report now too. This was 3 hours ago, right around when I started the live this morning. Potential snap count for Juwan Jennings. I think this was my favorite player prop I mentioned in this game. Definitely has me a little bit nervous about that, but it makes sense why they're setting the line where they're setting it now. They set this line for him at 43.5. Pearsall's lines is in the low 60s. Last time these two guys played together, it was Jennings, not Pearsall, that ended up popping off. But yeah, Pearsall has been balling, man. Pearsall is like near the top of the league and a lot of receiving metrics. He's third in yards per game. He's averaging 94 receiving yards per game. Only Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith-Njigba averaging more receiving yards per game.
Wow.
Than Ricky Pearsall this season. I mean, he's been absolutely balling. I don't think, he hasn't even scored a touchdown yet this season, and he's still averaging 14.6 points per game, two games over 100 yards this season. Not a bad matchup for him at all. So yeah, I think I agree. I would go Pearsall over Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith this week too. I'm going with the Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith stack in my DraftKings lineup. And I'm glad to hear we finally have someone on the live not talking me out of TreVeyon Henderson. We'll see how that ages. Definitely a dangerous combo here with two TreVeyon Henderson stands here in the live today. But I do think there's at least a narrative we can get behind here in week 4 that Henderson sees a bigger role. And we saw sort of conflicting things on what the Patriots did and then what they said. They did last week bench Ramondre Stevenson and play TreVeyon Henderson more in the fourth quarter, benched Antonio Gibson, who fumbled as well. But then they said this week they're not going to discipline Ramondre Stevenson. And they've really shown in the previous games that they want to play Ramondre Stevenson over TreVeyon Henderson. So I think a pretty wide range of outcomes in terms of the touches in this backfield, but a pretty good matchup, obviously, versus the Panthers as well. Here's a good one between Chase Brown and TreVeyon Henderson. I mean, Chase Brown, the panic meter is so high for Chase Brown. I actually think the panic meter is really, really high for a lot of guys in fantasy football right now. The panic meter for Chase Brown might be near the highest. I think T. Higgins is certainly up there as well.
Yep.
But there has not been a less efficient running back in the NFL than Chase Brown this season. Even TreVeyon Henderson's been more efficient than Chase Brown. Chase Brown leading the NFL dead last in the NFL in yards before first contact. So he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage more than any other running back in the league, and he's just not efficient enough to overcome that. He's at 2 yards per carry. That's 70th in the NFL, 5.4 yards per catch. He had 0.3 yards per carry last week, but a better matchup this week versus the Broncos. He did have a 19%. I think 19% target share. We got Chase Brown still projected ahead of Henderson here. We just talked about Henderson a decent bit there, but yeah, would you go Chase Brown in this spot?
Let's look at, I want to see the matchup tab for running backs against the Broncos. Just to refresh my memory. Let's
take a look. I do like this matchup tab a ton too, because it not only obviously on the comparison screen here, like you can get the raw number of just points allowed, but I like to get the context of like, who did they actually play, especially this early in the season? And one of these games was Jonathan Taylor, where he scored 30 points. And that's the number one running back in fantasy football right now. And I would argue the best role in the NFL. And then Marion Hampton last week after the Najee injury, he had 6 catches for 59 yards. That was 11, almost 12 points, fantasy points just from the catches alone, then 70 yards and a rushing touchdown as well for Hampton. Tony Pollard didn't do a ton in week 1. But we've seen 2 out of 3 games, good running backs just destroying the Broncos. Yeah, I'm curious what you think on this one.
I think I'm going Chase Brown. Honestly, I think he's safer. The only thing that scares me is they said going into the season they were going to get Chase Brown very involved in the receiving game. And he's only had 1 design target, if I'm not mistaken, so far this season, which is insane to me. I think they make it a priority to get him the ball. And I think I'm leaning Chase Brown, especially with the Patriots coaching staff coming out and saying they're not going to discipline Ramondre. Tough situation, but I'm going Chase.
Yeah, and I mean, the Broncos, they've played 2 good running backs, especially in Jonathan Taylor. The Panthers, I think, looking at their matchup tab really quickly too, I mean, they've been way better against running backs than last season. Last season, they were historically bad run defense. This season, that's not been the case. They were really bad week 1 against ETN, but James Conner didn't have a very good game. Benson and him combined for just 50 rushing yards in total. Bijan only had 72 rushing yards. He only hit 16 points. Like, I mean, what's the ceiling for Henderson? Like, matching James Conner's production here? Like, is he really going to beat Bijan and ETN's production? Like, probably not in a 3-way backfields. Yeah, I think the role for Chase Brown, it's way safer. The matchups arguably like at least as good, like about the same, honestly, matchup wise, just looking at the matchup screens there. So yeah, I think I agree. You got to go Chase Brown over Trevion Henderson for sure. All right, I see someone in the TikTok live asking, someone's in the TikTok live, I'm getting people chirping me because I was advocating a lot of bad start-sit decisions here in this Ireland time game. I had DK Metcalf on my must bench list this morning.
Well.
He beat his projection in a single play, which is certainly capable, a guy capable of doing that. But I want to talk you through my two favorite player props of the day. I'm curious which one you like more. So I see someone in the TikTok live asking what my player props were. We're hitting the player props on this live stream about a 60% clip dating back to last season. Last week was my single best betting day personally that I've had in many years. And it was entirely because of Luther Burden, who was my favorite player prop last week. His line was at 7.5 yards last week. There's a lot of coach speak saying they're going to try to get him more involved heading into that game. They were playing the Cowboys as well, which we already talked about being an absolute smash. And it was my best betting day I've ever had in the last couple of years because I was taking Luther Burden's alt lines all the way up to 60 yards. His initial line was at 7.5 yards. So I was getting like plus 800 on Luther Burden over 60 yards. He did that in a single play. This week, they have his lines at 12.5 yards. They moved it up 5 yards. He had his highest target share of the season, his highest snap percentage of the season. And now Colston Loveland's out this week as well. I think no reason to think it's not at least around the same role as last week, if not better. Like there's definitely room for this role to grow too. Luther Burden was a prospect I was really high on. I think he's a really talented player. And he's going to be playing more. I mean, he can easily beat this line again in a single catch. So I'm on this one again as one of my favorite player props of the week. It's not like the Raiders are a scary matchup. So that's my favorite player prop, number one, Luther Burden over 12.5 receiving yards. Number two is the Judkins rushing line. He's beat this line in both games. Judkins off the street with 2 practices beat this line against the Ravens, had 10 carries in that game. I mean, truly crazy how much he played, honestly, in that first game when you really think about the context. And then last week against the Packers, elite front seven, he gets 18 carries, 95% of the rushing attempts for the Browns last week and goes for 94 rushing yards against, I think, a better defense than he's playing this week. Not a bad defense, obviously, in the Lions, but it feels like one of these situations where Judkins is going to be efficient and talented enough that he's a bit matchup proof. He's going to average close to 4 or 5 yards per carry, regardless of the matchup. And no matter what the game script is, they're getting this guy at least 15 carries every game. Like just one of the easiest buttons to press for the Browns offense right now. So those are my two favorite player props. Judkins over 55.5 rushing yards, Luther Burden over 12.5 receiving yards. If you had to choose one of those two, Shay, which one did I convince you of more?
I'm going Luther Burden. Listen, I mean, this might be a little biased. I am Lions Walter picks, but I think the Lions defense specifically are about to devour that Browns offense. I don't think there's going to be a lot of room for Judkins to run, but if Judkins performs this week against the Lions, I think he is completely matchup proof. And if you're in a 10-man, you need to be locking him into your lineup every single week. So this is a big week for him. I'm interested.
Yeah, for sure. Judkins, he didn't play week 1. He had 2 practices before week 2. He leads all rookie running backs in rushing yards right now. Really impressive stuff. And one of those games was against the Packers. And I think, like I said, that the Lions' run defense is good. Is it that much better than the Packers' defense, though? I'm not super convinced about that. All right, let's get back to some of these start-sit questions here. Again, we're going to try to prioritize the start-sits. Will you guys let us know what the Walter Picks app thinks first? Let's jump over to the QB ranks. I'll pull up the QB ranks on both lives here because there's some interesting QB start-sits in both live streams right now. Someone before was asking about Pat Mahomes versus Daniel Jones. I definitely would go Pat Mahomes there. Let me just pull up the QB rankings so we can look at those on the live stream here. But after the 3 elite rushing QBs, Pat Mahomes is right after him, ahead of Justin Herbert. He has been running more this season. Xavier Worthy is going to be active. We'll see how much he really has a role in this game. But I do feel pretty safe playing Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I think it's a tiny bit riskier. Just that game might not be close, but their pass rate over expectation has given me a lot of confidence there too. I think like the really tough starts that start kind of in this range between Bo Nix, Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, Purdy, Fields, May, and Caleb Williams. I got a question in the TikTok live about May versus Fields. Which of these guys just on the screen right now? Like how would you rank these guys Shay, which of these guys are you most confident in between Bo Nix, Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, Purdy, Fields, May, Caleb? I'm seeing like tons of start sits across all of these guys in the chat right now.
So for sure, out of those guys, I'm definitely most confident in Daniel Jones this week. I was talking about it a little bit ago. I just think Daniel Jones, I mean, he has not shown a single reason why you should not start him. Like he's been I think QB3 right now, right?
QB4, yeah.
QB4, yeah. But between May and Fields, I think is interesting. For me, I had some notes written for both of them because I found some dirt on Fields against the Dolphins. He's had one career game against the Dolphins in 2022. 123 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 178 rushing yards, which set the record for the most rushing yards in a single NFL game for a quarterback, and then 1 rushing touchdown. That got you, I mean, we could probably check. That probably got you at least 35 fantasy points.
42.7 points.
Like, I mean, yes, it's not the same coaching staff, all of that, but man, that makes it hard not to start him. And we've really only seen one game of Justin Fields. I don't really even count that Bills game where he went out in the second quarter with a concussion. I don't see how you don't start Fields over May. And I know it's kind of it's definitely inflated by the bad Penix week last week, but the Panthers rank first in points given up to the quarterback position right now. So me personally, I'm going Fields.
Yeah, looking at this 2022 game logs here, he also went for more than 40 points the following week, had another 147 rushing yards. I will say he really got hurt late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter in that game. Okay. Yeah. He played horrible in that game before the injury as well. He finished with 4 points through basically 3 quarters. He had 49 rushing yards. Good, though. He completed 3 passes in that game. This is the problem for Fields, and the scary part of Fields is just like his ability to actually throw the ball. And if defenses can key in on that, it becomes really hard to run the ball too when they know you're just so one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But the Dolphins defense, it does not scare me at all this season. I mean, they're definitely one of the worst defenses in the league. That has really shown up every single week so far this season. They rank second worst quarterback so far this year. So yeah, I think Fields is certainly startable. I think I agree. I think I would go Daniel Jones over Bo Nix here as well. It's a really good matchup for Bo Nix. He hasn't played great so far this season, but he's had pretty tough matchups. Obviously a much easier matchup here this week. But yeah, I think I agree. I'd go Daniel Jones, especially with that over-under we were looking at in that game. How about Drake May and Caleb Williams? Like if we compare these 3 guys here, I think this is some really tough start sits between the 3 of these guys. Caleb Williams was QB1 last week.
Yeah.
But he also got to play the Cowboys. He doesn't get to play the Cowboys every single week. The Raiders are not a good defense either. The Dolphins aren't a great defense. The Panthers have actually been like a decent defense this season, especially against the pass. We have not seen a good QB game against the Panthers yet. Kyler had 15 points. Penix looked awful last week, and Trevor Lawrence has looked bad all season, really. But even Kyler only had 15 points. He had 32 rushing yards in that game. I think I personally would probably go Caleb Williams, then Fields, then May, if I had to make a choice. I
completely agree with that
here. Order. Yeah, I think that's the order I would go into. But yeah, the Panthers matchup is like kind of sneakily not that great for Drake May here.
Yeah, I agree. Wow. And I mean, this matchup, Raiders against Bears, is looking scrumptious for Caleb Williams, in my opinion. I mean, really the only person that scares me is Max Crosby off the edge. But besides that, I think the Bears win almost everywhere.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. The Bears are underdogs in this game. They're
really?
They're 1.5 point underdogs in Vegas. There's some pretty surprising spreads across the NFL this season. Yeah, I'll pull it up here. I think that was definitely one of the more surprising ones to me. I was honestly kind of surprised the Vikings weren't favored by more here versus the Steelers too. So take my spread takes, I guess, with a slight grain of salt, at least so far in that game. But yeah, the Patriots being favored by 5.5, that was pretty surprising to me. The Eagles are only favored by 3.5 against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have just barely beat 3 pretty mid teams so far this season. So that was a little bit surprising to me. But yeah, then the Bears, they are underdogs. Yeah, in Las Vegas in this one. Also like pretty surprising to me. I know their defense has been really, really bad, but yeah, that definitely was a shocking one. All right, let's get to some more start sit questions in the comments here. I think we were in agreement here on the tough QB start sit there. All right, we got someone, Ruben, shout out to you, letting us know what the app says here as well. I'll toss this one to you, Shay, first. Pearsall, Egbuka, and Dobbins. The app saying both receivers here. Dobbins in a really good matchup versus the Bengals. We haven't talked about him yet. We did talk about Pearsall a tiny bit. But yeah, how would you play this one?
So First off, I am 100% starting Igbuka. Igbuka is probably my guy this week. Mike Evans is out. Chris Godwin, we don't know what that's going to look like. I find it unlikely coming off a dislocated ankle and I believe like 2 full practices this week. He's going to go out and play more than 60% of the snaps. And we saw in the final drive against the Jets, once that crazy blocked field goal, they leaned on Igbuka. I mean, he kind of won them that game with that big catch on the sideline to get them into field goal range. I think they lean on him this week. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see 10 plus targets for Igbuka. I know we haven't seen that type of target share yet with him, but it's because Mike Evans has been out there. So for me, I would definitely start Igbuka. And then I would personally go Dobbins. I mean, I think it's very positional depending on your matchup. You know, if you're already projected to win, let's say 58%, I would go Dobbins. I think he's safer than Pearsall. But let's say you had a terrible Thursday night and you have less than a 40, then go Pearsall. I think he has the higher upside. But for me, yeah, exactly. Pearsall has the highest boom percentage there. But for me, I'd go Dobbins and Igbuka.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one here. It looks like Ruben straight up lied to us here in the comment about what Walter is saying in a PPR league. Walter is definitely highest on Dobbins among these three. And yeah, Dobbins, the floor and ceiling for him, I think, is so strong here versus the Bengals. The Broncos are 8.5-point favorites in this game. My favorite player prop in that game was Dobbins over 14.5 rushing attempts as well.
Oh, wow.
And he's played really good. Every single time we've seen Dobbins play and be healthy, he's been good. Like, he's been efficient. He's been almost at 5 yards a carry. Like, his whole career is really his only issue has been health. And this year has been kind of no different. He's got at least 14 points in every game. He's scored in every single game. And he's starting to get more receiving work with Tyler Bidet getting benched and not really playing much starting at least last week. That I think is really promising. His snap percentage was a season high last week too versus the Chargers in the revenge game for him. But yeah, I agree. Igbuka is a really, really difficult guy to bench right now. And you mentioned the target share hasn't even been that good. Last week was actually really encouraging. 29% target share for Igbuka, even though he had a season low snap percentage, but a season high target share. Like, when he was out there, they were getting him the ball. No Mike Evans, like you mentioned. I think that increases his touchdown potential. We've already seen him be an insane touchdown scorer, 21.4% touchdown rate. I mean, he's scoring 1 out of every 5 catches so far this season. Yeah. Certainly not sustainable, but goes to show what his touchdown potential can be. And yeah, I'm certainly not expecting Godwin to come back and be like this immediate producer like he was. He was the wide receiver 2 in points per game last year, Chris Godwin. We'll see how long or if he can get back to that type of level, but tough to expect that here in his first game. And they're going to be playing from behind, I think, versus the Eagles as well. So yeah, I think I would probably go Igbuka in Dobbins here in bench Pearsall. Pearsall's ceiling is tough to ignore though as well with the third in receiving yards per game right now. None of these guys are easy to bench, but yeah, I think Dobbins floor ceiling combo is the best. I probably do lean Igbuka just slightly over Pearsall as well. We got a tough one here in the chat. Is Tyreek Hill playing? Is he a good start? Yeah, I do think he's a good start. That one's from the TikTok live. But we got an interesting one here with Ladd, Sutton, Scatterbo, Judkins, half PPR. Walter's saying both running backs. I appreciate you shouting out the scoring setting here too, because this is part of the reason the app is definitely really powerful. One of the hardest things I think as a fantasy football content creator is properly adjusting for everyone's scoring settings. Every league is different. There's a huge range of scoring settings. Obviously, the biggest being the non-PPR, half PPR, PPR. But like the running backs, they always do get a huge boost in half PPR scoring. My mind's always working in PPR because all my leagues are PPR leagues. But yeah, interested to hear your thoughts on this one, trying to account for the half PPR scoring settings here, Shay. But do you agree with the app here to start both running backs over Ladd?
Man, this is a tough one. I'm more of a PPR guy, so I got to switch the mindset. Me personally, I disagree. I think Scatterbo, I would go Scatterbo. I might be butchering that, but I would go Scatterbo. I mean, last week, we can look on the Walter Picks app. He only had a 59% snap share, but he still saw 16 touches. And it's kind of the same thing with Igbuka. When he was on the field, he was getting the ball. Like, they were making a priority to get him the ball. And it's because he looked amazing. He looked far better than Devin Singletary. And now with Tracy ruled out, I think Scat's a must start, even with the not great matchup. I personally would go Scatterbo and Sutton here, I think.
Yeah, I do not want to bench Ladd right now. He projects as a top 10 receiver for us, at least in the PPR scoring setting right now. See where he's at in half PPR, probably a little bit lower. Yeah, he's down to wide receiver 12 in half PPR. To me, Ladd McConkey is like one of the most obvious and exciting buy lows in fantasy football right now. If you're able to buy low, which I know in some leagues it will be harder to do than others. But if you had told me before the season that the Chargers were going to be number one in pass rate over expectation, and Justin Herbert's going to be playing at an MVP level, I probably would have been taking Ladd McConkey in the first round of fantasy football drafts. And it hasn't been a great outcome for him in the first 3 games. He's getting outproduced by Keenan and Quentin Johnson right now. I still feel pretty confident to say he's the best receiver on this team. I still think he probably finishes with the most fantasy points on this team by the end of the season. And yeah, just a really, really obvious buy low option right now. Not a guy I feel great benching, but I am a little scared this game versus the Giants won't be close. And they might not throw quite as much as they've been throwing. Going back to the start sit question though, if I pull up the other running back here in Judkins, in half PPR, I just always try to convince myself to lean towards the running backs because half PPR, the scoring is such a higher percentage comes from touchdowns. And obviously receptions just mean 50% less. That's why these running backs are projecting better because the scoring mode. I'm sure if we switch this to PPR, is easily Sutton and Ladd should be started here. But yeah, I think I agree. I think I would probably go Scatterbo and Judkins. It's tough to bench these receivers, but in half PPR, if you can fill your flex slots with running backs like this, I think you're in a really, really good spot and is the way to lean generally. Okay, this one is a rough one here from Hunter. I have to pick between any of the Commanders running backs. He's got the whole Commanders backfield or Dowdle. Who are you starting? All bad options. I know. Yeah, definitely all of these are really rough options here. I think you probably have to go with one of these Commanders running backs. So let's just pull them up. In no world can we start Rico Dowdle in fantasy football. So I'm curious what you think among these Commanders running backs. We have Chris Rodriguez projected just ahead of Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. I mean, one of these guys definitely capable of a good game here with Mariota starting. I don't expect a ton of pass volume with Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown out as well. I'm sorry, we're still in half PPR here. Let me switch this back to PPR because I assume this league is PPR if you don't say. And that does bump Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt just ahead of Chris Rodriguez, who does not catch many passes. It also puts Jerry McNichols more in the mix as well. Let's compare all 3 of these Commanders running backs. I'll go second here. Shay, curious what you think on this one.
I think I have to go with the upside of Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. It's tough to pass up on. I mean, when he's been on the field, he's looked really good, and he has 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. I like it. I'm interested to see how many goal line carries. He had 2 goal line carries last week. For me, I think you have to go JCM. I think he by far is the highest upside of the 3. He surprisingly has not been as involved in the receiving game as I projected him to be, but I think that'll come around as the weeks go on. Me personally, I think it has to be JCM.
Yeah, I mean, pretty surprising. Last week, his role didn't change. After Eckler goes down, his role really didn't change much. He did have a season high snap percentage up at 40%, but his rush share was about the same. His target share was basically the same. He is dealing with an injury, the knee injury, I believe, and he actually had a decent amount of injuries. On track to play. It was a knee. We mentioned earlier in the live, the calf injury was more concerning than the knee injury. I think that was with Chuba Hubbard, who I guess if we're really concerned about Chuba Hubbard, you could toss Rico Dowdle in the mix of this question. But I agree. Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt's ceiling is the highest here by far. I don't think it's very close. His touchdown rate's actually been really strong so far this season too. 9% touchdown rate. That's RB2 in the NFL on somewhat low volume. And who's up there at number 1? None other than Mr. Jeremy McNichols, who I think is he's got 4 carries this season or something. He's got 8 carries and he scored once, so pretty misleading touchdown rate. One of those was just a long run last week. His snap percentage last week was up at 26%. I mean, it's a 5-way backfield between Mariota, Jeremy McNichols, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez, and Deebo Samuel got more rushing attempts last week as well. I mean, even with Eckler out, it's just kind of a mess for fantasy, but I agree. I would go Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt in this one. And I was just going to say, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt did have some injury issues in college as well, which led to his somewhat strange college career where he was ineligible for 1 season. He dealt with injuries. He really didn't play much in college. That's part of the reason he went in the 7th round of the NFL draft. But yeah, I think I would go with him there. All right, we got start for bench 1 here. Which of these guys are you benching? I think I had a Jacoby versus Pearsall question up before too, and I think there was a question similar on the TikTok live. Are we playing Pearsall over Jacoby? And then which of these guys are we benching here? God, Jamar Chase. I haven't seen any T. Higgins start sit questions yet, which honestly kind of surprising. But which guy are you benching here in this spot, Shay?
I mean, it's tough because do I like Jacoby Myers more than Jamar Chase this week? I hate to say it, but kind of yes. But you can't bench Jamar Chase. You took him with your first pick more than likely. You know what the talent level he's offering you. I think you have to go Jacoby Myers. I think actually the closest argument would be Devontae Adams or Jacoby Myers, with Devontae, 32-year-old wide receiver, dealing with a hamstring injury. So for me, that's actually the biggest worry. But still, in this game, like we were talking about, highest over under the week, or tied for the highest, Colts Rams. I think you got to bench Jacoby, and he didn't have a great week last week. Trey Tucker was super involved, and yeah, for me, I think it's Jacoby.
Yeah, I'm benching Devontae here for sure. I feel pretty good about every other receiver on this list.
Yeah,
I'm not benching Jamar Chase even against Pat Surtain and the Broncos. Honestly, like the Pat Surtain effect. Don't let Seth hear this, because I know he's super into the benching against Pat Surtain, but the Pat Surtain effect has not really been a thing this season so far. I can't get out of my head Daniel Jones like targeting Pat Surtain and Michael Pittman doing pretty well in that spot too. But yeah, you kind of have to start Jamar Chase. And I'm not benching Igbuka. We already talked about him. Keenan Allen projects as a top 12 wide receiver. Jacoby Myers projects as a top 12 wide receiver as well. And then I think the thing that gives me confidence to bench Devontae Adams here is just the hamstring injury for a 33-year-old wide receiver. He comes into this game questionable with a hamstring. He's going to play. I'm still starting him in a lot of spots. But in a situation like this, I think he's the right one to be benching. Not an easy start sit here, though.
yeah, it's tough.
For sure. All right, we got another interesting one here. Happy Sunday, fellas. Happy Sunday to you as well. Best day of the week, man. We got football already on our TV screens. The Steelers kind of taking it to the Vikings here in Ireland. It's 14-6 in that game.
TJ Watt just picked it.
Yeah, crazy start to this game. Carson Wentz, I think that's his second interception, right, in this one. Yeah, pretty big interception there from TJ Watt. But all right, we got this start sit here. Marion Hampton over Derrick Henry. Whew. And then pick 2. Let's talk about Hampton here. This is an interesting one. I don't think you can bench Hampton. Like in basically any situation, we only have 5 running backs ranked ahead of Marion Hampton. It's McCaffrey, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon, then James Cook. I'm sure this is good for you to look at, Shay. I know you were in on Hampton. And honestly, like I was very in on Hampton too. I know we talked about it before the season when we were in person together as well. Like I thought he was a really, really strong prospect in a really good environment. And we got kind of lucky here with the Najee Harris injury. Like Najee's role was growing like pretty clearly there in week 3. But now it's just a complete smash for Marion Hampton. It's hard not to project him in the top 10. He's in the top 6 right now. And it's weird to be benching Derrick Henry. But Derrick Henry's not even in the top 12. Derrick Henry's only had 1 good game this season for fantasy.
He's having a fumbling problem, surprisingly.
Yeah. I said it when I talked about this game earlier in the live. Derrick Henry had 3 fumbles all of the last 2 seasons. He's got 3 fumbles in 3 games this season. I mean, yeah, pretty hard to ignore that. I do think he'll probably figure out the fumbling issue, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going Hampton here. Do you agree?
100%. And actually, one of my favorite props of the week is, I'm risky when I bet, I'm not trying to 2x, I'm trying to, 8x. And Hampton, I like the anytime touchdown for Hampton this week, because you would see even when Najee was on the field, if you look on the Walter Picks app, you'd see Hampton was still seeing over 3 goal line carries per game. They were making a priority to get him the ball at the goal line. And against a mediocre Giants defense, I think they're going to be at the goal line a lot. And if he converts on at least one of those, I think he has a good day.
Yeah, he's 9th in red zone carries per game.
Yeah.
Wow. Surprised to see Jalen Warren this high too on the list. That definitely
wish
I saw that before I told people to bench him, Kenneth Gainwell over Trevion Henderson.
Jalen Warren became inactive. He cooked me in the 32-man. I have to start Zamir White now.
Yeah, that is what it is like playing in a 32-person fantasy football league. It is rough out there for sure. Already 25% of the way through the fantasy season. Wow. So y'all, when you say it like this, man, pretty crazy to wrap your head around that. At least like 25% of the way through the regular fantasy football season. I mean, this is week 4. You're right. I mean, week 16 is the semifinals in pretty much every single league. So yeah, we're pretty much a fourth of the way through. It goes so fast, man.
That's depressing.
See, this is why we really got to appreciate and enjoy every Sunday that we have. But got a good question here. Dak, and I have CD and no backup. Mariota, Bryce, Wittett, or Geno. Yeah, so I'm curious where you think the line is for Dak and starting Dak Prescott today. He's playing the Packers, a pretty scary matchup for the entire offense, I would say. no CeeDee Lamb. We got him ranked just ahead of Mariota, just behind Baker Mayfield in the Walter Picks app. Would you start Geno over him? We have Geno projected just ahead right now in the Walter Picks app. Would you play Bryce Young? He's got Ted McMillan as well. The Patriots defense has obviously been horrible this season. We actually have Bryce Young just ahead of Geno. This is a really, really interesting one in comparison to what we're projecting. I have a feeling we might even disagree on this one too. Jay, look at this. They all project within 1 point.
Yeah, this is the toughest question I think we've had so far.
Yeah, this is part of the reason too that I like to be able to pull up the projections. Like, you got to understand that rankings can be misleading. Like, these guys are projected all within 0.2 points of each other. Like, the rankings, they don't mean that much when they're projected this close. Like, it can be a lot more of a an interesting starts the decision when you really break it down. But yeah, who would you go with here, Shay, between Dak, Geno, and Bryce this week?
So I'm looking at the matchup tab for Packers against quarterbacks so far this season. They've given up 225 passing yards week 1, 200, and then 142. And Dak is not offering you a lot in the rushing game, so you're going to need a big passing yards day and at least 2 passing touchdowns for him to, I think, outperform Geno. And I just don't think he's going to get that against the Packers, who have been locked down. Micah Parsons is going to be on a tear, guys. I mean, I'm in the Dallas area and the air feels different. He's in town, this is scary. So me personally, I got to bench Dak, and I think I go, how many points did Geno have last week? He did well, right?
Yeah, he's coming off a Trey Tucker had 40 points.
Yeah, so of course he had
all 3 touchdowns. Geno was QB4 last week against the Commanders, 26.1 points, 289. He also had 362 passing yards in week 1 versus a brutally bad Patriots secondary, and then did much worse against the Chargers. Like, he's played one good defense, and he had a bad game versus them. And the 2 positive matchups he went over 280 passing yards, and now he gets the Bears, who ranked 3rd worst against quarterbacks so far this season. That includes J.J. McCarthy putting up 23 points. Jared Goff had 34 points against them. And then Dak Prescott himself played the Bears last week, and he only had 14 points, but did throw for 251 passing yards without CeeDee Lamb in that game. So, yeah, definitely a way better matchup here for Geno. I'm easily benching Dak in this spot, like for both Geno and Bryce Young. But yeah, I think it's Geno.
I think it's Geno as well.
Over Bryce Young. The only fear I have about Bryce Young, if this was last week, honestly, I might be advocating for Bryce because of how bad the Pat secondary has been. I mean, they've been really, really bad. Their front seven's actually been pretty good.
But now they get Christian Gonzalez.
They were the only defense through the first 2 weeks to allow back-to-back over 300 yards passing. And then last week they did okay, pretty well versus Aaron Rodgers. They still somehow almost won despite having 5 turnovers in the game. Like, the defense actually played pretty solid. But they got cooked by Geno and by Tua. Like, 2 of their best games of the season here for Tua and Geno. But the Rodriguez is back for the Christian Gonzalez.
Christian Gonzalez. Yeah.
Yeah, I always call him Chris, but it's he's back for Gonzalez is back for the Pats. He's like easily their number 1 corner. So maybe the secondary starts to turn around a little bit. So yeah, I think it's Geno.
I think it's actually pretty easily Geno now once we dived into it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Geno definitely a pretty sneaky, honestly, start here this week. Someone saying Daniel Jones over Mayfield, Geno over Mayfield. Yeah, I would play both those guys over Mayfield. How are you feeling about Mayfield this week? He's right in the mix here between all of these guys too. Would you start him over Geno?
Ooh, man, that is super tough. I actually think I would lean Geno. I don't love the matchup against the Eagles. He is dealing with a biceps injury as well. He's without his main guy, Mike Evans. I would lean Geno.
Yeah, I'm leaning Geno here for sure as well. I think I would probably put Baker behind Bryce Young also. I'm a little bit nervous for him without Mike Evans, and we'll see what Chris Godwin can really do. Can you please rank Keenan Allen, Ladd, and A.J. Brown? Yeah, this is a really tough one. Let me pull up. I think I actually have a screenshot here along these lines for the TikTok Live to pull up. Yeah, I do, at least with A.J. Brown in it. But A.J. Brown, I expected some start-sits with him this week. We had a ton of start-sit questions with him last week. He had not really done much because the Eagles had not had to throw. He pops off last week. Both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown were top 10 receivers last week. A.J. Brown was wide receiver 4 with 23 points, 6 catches, 109, and a touchdown. First game that the Eagles really have been pushed to throw the ball. But then you got Keenan and Ladd in this start sit too. We actually have Keenan projected ahead of Ladd in the Walter Picks app. I talked about, I wanted to just really be in on Ladd still earlier, but yeah, which two guys would you start here if you had to make a start sit here? And how would you rank these three, Shay?
I would personally go Keenan Allen. There is no reason to be benching Keenan Allen after what he's done the first 3 weeks. It literally looks like he went on a 8-month vacation to Chicago, came back, no time passed, and he's right back with his main guy, Justin Herbert. I don't know if we have this stat in the Walter Picks app. I saw it somewhere. He has like a 33% target share in the red zone right now. When they get in the red zone, they're throwing the ball to him a ton. So me personally, I'm going Keenan Allen. It's hard. He's getting 2 red zone targets per game, which puts him, is that, top 5, top 4?
Yeah.
So for me, it's got to be Keenan Allen. And then I would go, Ladd and AJ are very close for me this week, but that's tough. I would go AJ just because I think this game against the Bucs is going to be close, and I think that'll lead to more passing volume in the fourth, in the late third, where with this Chargers matchup, we might not see as much passing volume later in it because I think the Chargers are going to run away with it against the Giants. But I'm interested in your take. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm rating these guys Ladd number 1, Keenan number 2, AJ Brown number 3. I don't feel super strong about Ladd over Keenan. Keenan's been better, just straight up better this season. Target share has been better. I still think long-term Ladd's going to be better this season. I think we had a large enough sample size last year to know Ladd is an absolute baller and is going to be the alpha like long-term in this offense. But yeah, Keenan has the clock has not been it didn't even need to be turned back. Like Keenan is this week probably going to set the all-time NFL record for the fastest player to 1,000 receptions in his career.
Really, that's awesome.
Along those lines, I think beating Marvin Harrison. So yeah, I mean, just like really, really crazy stuff from Keenan. I think he's like way ahead too. Like he could hit it like in week 17 this season. Like that's how far ahead he is, and he might hit it this week for the fastest player ever to 1,000 catches. I think is what I read this morning. So yeah, an all-time career here from Keenan Allen. But yeah, I think I would probably go Ladd, Keenan, then AJ Brown. I think the Eagles every week will be at risk to not throw a lot. I wasn't convinced that it was going to be that low as it was in the first 2 weeks. If they were at that pass attempt volume from the first 2 weeks, they would have set an all-time record for the lowest pass volume like ever in the NFL. Last year, they were a historically low pass volume offense, and they were averaging through the first 2 games like 4 pass attempts less than that compared to last year. So yeah, it's like really wasn't surprising to see it bounce back. Yeah, in any games where it's like this, where I think Jalen Hurts dropped back like 32 times last week, AJ Brown's going to smash and be a really, really good option for you, but it's going to be tough to predict when those weeks are going to be. So yeah, I think I have more faith in just the Chargers passing environment in general. So that's how I would rank them. But yeah, all good options, honestly, in my opinion, here in week 4. What I want to throw Quentin Johnson up here too. I see some Quentin Johnson questions here in the TikTok live. I know in our private Slack channel at Walter Picks, there's a Quentin Johnson versus Marvin Harrison Jr., rest of season and for the future debate happening. That was alive and well. That was in the first half of the Cardinals game. Obviously, the second half was a little bit different, but we got Quentin Johnson ranked 1 spot ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. here in week 4. I mean, crazy how the tides have turned. I'll pull up one other receiver here as well. I think let's go with Calvin Ridley. I know there's been a lot of Calvin Ridley questions too, but yeah, do you agree? Would you start Quentin Johnson over Brian Thomas Jr. right now? And like Calvin Ridley, we can talk about here as well. Haven't seen many Calvin Ridley start sits, but people maybe are just fully bailing on him at this point. I think maybe, there's a couple Calvin Ridley questions here in the chat, but yeah, how would you feel about starting Quentin Johnson here over Brian Thomas Jr.?
I mean, we just need to take a step back and realize how crazy this season has been. Who would have thought that in week 4, we're talking about Quentin Johnson over Brian Thomas Jr.
Wow.
And I can't believe I'm about to answer, but you need Quentin Johnson over Brian Thomas this week, in my opinion. I mean, a great match against the Giants. He's looked great. There's no reason to bench him, honestly. I'd go QJ. Yeah,
I mean, when you look at the stats this season, this is what I was saying too about the turning point of the season. Like, we have enough data now to honestly, this shouldn't be that hard of a decision. It's hard to wrap your head around when you maybe took Brian Thomas Jr. with your first pick. At worst, he was your second pick. Quentin Johnson was like almost undrafted in pretty much every league. But you look at the stats, 18.6 points per game for Quentin Johnson. That's more than double both of these other receivers. He's almost double the yards per game than Brian Thomas Jr. We pulled the receiving stats. It's going to be a similar story. Their target shares are actually all somewhat similar, but the catches per game, I mean, the catch rate for both Brian Thomas Jr. and Ridley have been horrible. Calvin Ridley is actually, I think, been better than Brian Thomas Jr. He's catching 38% of his targets. For Brian Thomas Jr., it's 28% of his targets have been caught. I mean, ridiculously
Insane.
horrible efficiency for both these guys. I think both will bounce back at some level. But yeah, I don't know how you look at any of these numbers and don't start Quentin Johnston over Brian Thomas Jr. It's rough out there, man. Parker Washington out-targeted him last week too and like just straight up played better than Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not fully panicked on Brian Thomas Jr. like rest of the season, but yeah, this week I think it is Quentin Johnston over him. Man, yeah, it's just crazy here. We're in week 4, like, confidently starting Quentin Johnston over Brian Thomas Jr. And I won't be surprised at all if we look back and be like, wow, what were we doing? But definitely seems like a clear decision so far this season. Alvin, good to see you back in the YouTube live. We got start 2 here between Chase Brown, DJ Moore, Monty, and we got Quentin Johnston in this one here as well. This is definitely a pretty interesting one here, Shay. I think we'd both start Quentin Johnston based on what we were just saying, but you're also wearing the Lions gear here on the live. You're our Lions creator, so curious what your thoughts here on Monty are on Monty in this one too. Which 2 would you start here, Shay?
I might like the Lions, but I'm not going to be biased. I don't think Monty should be started out of these 4. I would go Quentin Johnston 100%. I think he's actually the most obvious one out of these 4. And then for me, it boils down to DJ Moore, Chase Brown. I think I have to go DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore, it's kind of like Brian Thomas as well. DJ Moore has been very underwhelming. I feel like it hasn't been talked about enough. I think any given week, DJ Moore is gonna have a great week. I mean, his highest scoring game so far is 12 points.
Yeah.
And I think these have all just been very full games. So even at that, he's gonna get you around 10 points. So for me, I'd go DJ and Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, I think DJ Moore's ceiling is being slept on a little bit. I talked about that earlier when I was talking about Luther Burden as well. He doesn't have a game over 20% target share yet. Hasn't even hit 19% target share. Pretty surprising, but another good matchup, like similar to what we saw from DK Metcalf in the first half of that game, I think is what I was comparing it to. Like, it wouldn't be shocking at all to see a 60-yard, touchdown to DJ Moore. This is a guy who historically we've seen be super efficient, especially once the ball is in his hand. So yeah, definitely more than capable of having a huge game. I think I probably would go Chase Brown personally over DJ Moore, over Dave Montgomery, but it's close. I don't knock you at all for saying DJ Moore. I think the ceiling probably actually is higher for DJ Moore than Chase Brown. I think the role for Chase Brown is probably the most locked in among these guys. I have like some hope too from the 19% target share for Chase Brown last week that he can bounce back at least in the receiving game. But yeah, definitely a close one there. Yarjma, Sam, how we doing? It is the best day of the week, 100%, man. Could you pick 2 between Ricky Pearsall, Ladd, and Tet? Yeah, a lot of Ricky Pearsall questions in the chat today, and I get it. We talked about it. He's 3rd in receiving yards per game. He is one of the most difficult guys to be putting on your bench right now. We are projecting Ladd ahead of him in the Walter Picks app. I think I would go Ladd over him. Obviously,
I knew you were going to say that after how you've been talking about Ladd.
I know. I'm pretty high on Ladd, clearly. But Pearsall's clearly been better this season, like easily been better this season. I'm curious if you disagree with me, Shay. Would you go Pearsall over Ladd?
Man, this is a tough one. I think you have to look at what we've seen so far this season. Do we really think this is the week McConkey all of a sudden get out? Because so far this season, if I'm not mistaken, he's getting out-targeted by both QJ and Keenan Allen.
Yep.
I don't know if this is the week that changes in a game where, the passing script is not going to be on their side. They're going to be up more than likely. For me, if Christian Gonzalez wasn't playing, it would definitely be Tet and Pearsall. I think Pearsall, and then, man, it's tough. I think I go Pearsall and Tet, though.
Yeah, I'm going Ladd and Pearsall. Yeah, for sure. I guess I'm higher than Ladd than Shay is, but yeah, I can't get out of my head just the fact of how much the Chargers are passing and how low the vibes are in the fantasy community around Ladd. Like, those things to me are at odds with each other, and a good opportunity to be buying low on Ladd. I'm definitely in on him. And I agree. I think with Gonzalez playing today, I would bench Tet in this one. But I think all 3 pretty good options. And I'm trying to buy low, honestly, on Tet too. I'm hoping he has one more game without a touchdown so I can continue to buy low. Like Booker or Worthy, I think this one's easy. Do you have any hope for Xavier Worthy today?
I have on the TikTok live, if you're in here, I have Worthy as a must sit. Just because I think he's going to be on a snap count this week. And I think it's a little foolish. Like, Tyquan Thornton has looked really good. he's not just going to evaporate. He's still going to have a snap share. If I'm not mistaken, he had 8 targets last week, had a very good fantasy day. So for me, I think the clear option is Igbuka. And then, Worthy, Godwin, that's a lot closer. I'd probably go Worthy just because of the big playability. And I think they're both going to be limited though.
Yeah, I don't really want to start either of these guys. And honestly, I'm like a little surprised that it seems like we're kind of in line with this, more so sort of in line with the prop markets for Godwin and Worthy. In situations like this, we try not to take super hard stances in the Walter Picks app when there's just a lot of uncertainty in what these roles will really be. And we sort of get in line with the betting markets because we have no insider information here, obviously, on exactly what these roles will look like. But I am a little surprised that it seems like generally, like, people are really not expecting this full role for Godwin, but like the prop markets are kind of expecting a normal role for Xavier Worthy. In my mind, these guys carry a pretty equal amount of risk. Godwin may be a little bit riskier since he just hasn't played in so long, but Xavier Worthy, already a smaller receiver, dealing with a shoulder injury. He's playing through the shoulder injury.
Do you know if he's wearing a brace?
They said he is going to be wearing a brace underneath the pad. I don't think you're going to be able to see the brace, but he is going to be wearing a brace. Like, he's one bad fall away from re-injuring his shoulder. I think there's like real risk he's more of a decoy and like just not his full role. Like I was reading some stuff. They expect to try to get him some touches like on the boundary so he can run out of bounds. Like that's not a strategy you can really deploy at the NFL.
Why would they say that too?
Level. Yeah, it doesn't really. I think that was the beat reporter speculation, not Chiefs like from the Chiefs specifically. But yeah, I mean, if that's the game plan, I mean, I want nothing to do with Worthy in fantasy. And I think there's like a world where they are kind of thinking that way with Xavier Worthy. So yeah, I definitely want to try to avoid both these guys if I can. Why the Pearsall hype? Yeah, we were just looking at it. Luka, Pearsall is number 3 in the NFL in receiving yards per game. He's been absolutely balling this season. And we read a report earlier, Juwan Jennings might be on somewhat of a snap count today as well. He's playing through 2 different injuries, Juwan Jennings. And yeah, Pearsall has had 2. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet this season, and he's still 16th in points per game. The touchdown is going to come for him. It's his best matchup of the season here too versus the Jaguars in terms of points per game allowed. So yeah, I feel pretty good about Pearsall, and I think the hype is very, very warranted. Some tight end questions. The tight end start-sits are tough, man. We got Sam Laporta ranked outside the top 15 right now. David Njoku ranks outside the top 15. Like both these guys, I think are startable in a lot of situations, or at least considering to be started. I want nothing to do with Mark Andrews this week with Isaiah Likely back. I'm not convinced that Mark Andrews is the best tight end on his own team. I'm not convinced that Travis Kelce is the best tight end on his own team right now. I think both those guys carry a lot of risk. Kelce projects really well in this game versus the Ravens, which I get. But yeah, this is a really interesting 4-way starts it. I think Fannin and Pitts might actually project the best in the Walter Picks app right now. Pitts projects the best. Wow, man.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rankings right now, and Pitts is highest.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one. Yeah, I'm curious if you have a gut reaction to this. It looks like Fannin has the best matchup against the Lions. I think the Lions, though, allowed a lot of points to, Tucker Kraft. And Mark Andrews had a huge game versus the Lions, too, scored twice against the Lions. To me, Mark Andrews plays more of a similar role, though, to David Njoku than to Harold Fannin. I think we might be a little too low, honestly, on David Njoku in the ranks right now. I personally would start Njoku, I think, over Fannin. This week, at least, it's a close call.
I think Njoku has more touchdown upside for sure, and you have to factor that in to tight ends. So yeah, I would go Njoku just slightly.
Yeah. So how about Fannin though versus Pitts and versus Andrews? Are you as worried about Andrews as I am? He's coming off a really good game, right? Last week, or was it the week before? Yeah, last week, his only good game. He had less than 2 points. The first 2 weeks. It was like rinse and repeat from last season, kind of. Last season he started so bad. We were talking about dropping him like early in the season, and then he started ripping off huge games. Last year, he started the season with 3.4, didn't have over 10 points the first 5 weeks. Then he really finished super strong, had one of the highest touchdown rates in the entire league last year. And then he had 2 touchdowns last week. But Isaiah Likely's back now. And Isaiah Likely's the guy they wanted to be the all-pro. Might be better than Andrews, or at least be comparable to him. Chiefs have been pretty good versus tight ends too. God, yeah, I think I side with the app with Kyle Pitts, but I don't feel great about it.
And we have to remember week 1, Chiefs Ravens last year, what likely went nuclear.
Yeah.
So you have to factor that in. I think I'm leaning Pitts. I'm looking at it. I mean, he's the tight end 11 in target share right now. Penix has made it clear he's making a priority to get Kyle Pitts the ball, his golf partner, if you guys knew. But man, I think I'm going Pitts. I like the Falcons' entire offense this week. I think it's going to be a bounce back game against the Commanders. They have something to prove, losing, what was it, 30-0 to the Panthers. So I guess it's Pitts. This is crazy, though.
Yeah, I think I would agree. And yeah, we got the golf partner narrative here on the week 4 Sunday morning live stream. We love to see those types of insights. Shay, I know you're going to be hopping off soon. I want to give you a chance to share your bold take for the week, and if you have one, your favorite player prop for the week as well.
Okay, I got a couple takes.
Nice.
My bold take of the week, and we were talking about it earlier. Man, I love this Colts offense. I love Daniel Jones this week. I think Pittman's going to go off, and that's why I have Colts winning it against the Rams. Super hot take, but I think Colts take it. And then with that, I have kind of a sleeper of the week, and it's someone I haven't heard this guy's name all year. Adonai Mitchell. I think he sees a much higher snap share with Alec Pierce out. And I think everyone can agree, if you know ball, if you are tapped in with the Adonai Mitchell pre-draft hype, I mean, he was a really good prospect. I liked him a lot coming out of Texas. For me, I think it's just about getting on the field, and I think this is the opportunity for him to do it with Alec Pierce out.
Yeah, definitely a good shout. I didn't mention it when we talked about this game. The Colts, they're 3.5 point underdogs in this game, so a bold take there that they'll win the game straight up. Definitely agree that they have a chance to do that. And Adonai Mitchell did have a season high snap percentage last week, 42%. Didn't get a touch in that game. The game wasn't particularly close last week though against the Titans either. Actually, it might have ended up being like really close at the end if I recall. Jonathan Taylor scored 3 times, so I don't think that the final score was that close, but. Yeah, definitely 2 good bold takes there. Adonai Mitchell will be on the field, definitely a decent amount. I'm kind of hopeful for Pittman and Downs with Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce, like one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL too. Yeah. The fact that he's been able to keep Adonai Mitchell like on the sidelines, I think says a lot. But I think he's again near the top of the league in yards per reception. He was, I think, at the top of the league last year in yards per reception. He's at 19 yards per reception this season. Alec Pierce, that's top 10 in the league. And last year, he was at 21.9 yards per reception. That was first in the NFL. That's the guy they're missing today. So someone's going to get these deep targets down the field that Alec Pierce has been so good with. It's probably going to be Adonai Mitchell or Michael Pittman. It's generally not Josh Downs running those types of routes. So I like that shout as well. And I'm curious. Let's see if there's any props out there for.
Okay. Yep. So the props.
I want to see.
Adonai Mitchell. I'm interested. Got to be super low.
He's at 29.5 yards. We got him projected for 34.
Wow. I feel like that's high.
Yeah, it is pretty high. I agree, but I think it goes to what you're saying. He's like a pretty interesting sleeper here in week 4. Was there other props you had specifically in mind?
So I've got 3. Omarion Hampton, we already talked about it. Omarion Hampton, anytime touchdown. Guys, he was getting 3 red zone, 3+. I think in week 2 against the Raiders, he had 4 red zone carries, even with Najee on the field. And now Najee's out. I think Omarion Hampton sees at least 3 red zone carries. And if he converts on one of those, then he gets you a touchdown. So I like Omarion Hampton anytime touchdown against the Giants. I like Keenan Allen over 4 catches. I don't understand. Maybe it's been adjusted since last night when I looked at it, but I do not understand how this line is that low when he's had, what is it? 7,
5, and 7.
That's insane to me. I think Keenan Allen easily hits that, especially in this narrative, him being the fastest receiver to 1,000 catches. That just, adds a little bit of juice to that. And then lastly, Jake Ferguson over 6 catches. I love that. He had 13 last week, guys. I think the Cowboys are going to be playing from behind, and I would rather take his catches line over his receiving yards line just because we saw when we looked at the matchup screen earlier, Packers are holding these quarterbacks to, I think the highest they've given up is like around 230. So
yeah, this is the same line Trey McBride had on Thursday night, which goes to show just the role that Jake Ferguson is in. Right now, McBride ended up with 7 catches. On Thursday night, I think he went under his yards line as well. But yeah, Ferguson's just locked into a massive role. He's 22 catches in the last 2 games. Obviously, this last one, probably most notable, with CeeDee Lamb out. He didn't even play that many snaps, 57% snap share. The game was over. He didn't play a ton in the fourth quarter. Still had a 32% target share on 14 targets. Caught 13 of those. And he's playing a Packers defense that gets to the quarterback so fast that he's going to have to be one of these outlets. And we've seen this consistently against the Packers. Sam Laporta had 6 catches for 79 yards. Zach Ertz beat this line, or just half a reception on this line, 6 catches, 64. And then the Browns tight ends, they combined for 8 catches. So on average, the Packers, they're allowing 7 catches for 72 yards. And then you get Ferguson in this unreal role. I mean, yeah, I like this one too. Yeah. You're getting plus odds on this as well. Like his floor is 5 catches, 6 catches. When you get to the floor, like this close to the prop line and you're getting plus odds, it's usually a pretty good sign. We have this as a pretty high value here in the Walter Picks app too. You can research any of the props that you're interested in too in the Walter Picks app. You can start a completely free 7-day trial in the app as well to see all these types of insights. And also like shopping for the best line. Look at this. We have like 15 different lines that are shown here in the app. Like one of these is way worse than the others. They're actually all pretty close in this example specifically, but a lot of times we'll see like huge differences in these lines. And one of the most valuable parts of, I think, the Walter Picks app prop evaluator is exactly this. Any other takes, parting takes here from you, Shay? I definitely like that Colts one and some of those props as well.
Parting takes, 2 bounce back guys. I think Drake London and Genty, 2 guys who have definitely underperformed. I think this is the best chance Genty has to show what we saw at the college level. Like he's playing a very mediocre Bears defense. I think Genty, we could see 20 plus points. And then Drake London, I like the odds for a bounce back game against Commanders. Then my 2 like must start guys, Debo and Igbuka.
Yeah, I'm in on Genty too. And I kind of agree. Like this is it kind of for Genty with the panic meter. If he can't do it against the Bears, they've been really, really bad. I'm definitely gonna be a lot more concerned, but I am pretty in on him here as well. Well, Shay, thank you so much for hopping on the Sunday Morning Live. It was great having you on. The first of the 3 guests that has not talked me out of Trevion Henderson. So maybe that's a sign of good vibes to come for Hendo here in week 4. But yeah, I've been loving the content. If you guys aren't following Shay, you can follow his personal account, 2 Minute Drill on TikTok, and also Lions.WalterPicks on TikTok and Instagram as well. Shay, hope you have a great week 4, man. Appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Great stuff there from Shay. A lot of good takes, some good disagreements, and some agreements there as well with Shay here in week 4. I know this Vikings-Steelers game is coming down to the final stretch in the 4th quarter, 24-6. Steelers lead the Vikings. Really surprising scoreline there, in my opinion. Jordan Mason's at 52 rushing yards, so it's not out of reach. But, I mean, Kenneth Gainwell, 2 TDs with 57 rushing yards. DK Metcalf has a huge game, 126 and a touchdown. I'm already down bad here with the Kenneth Gainwell being benched for Trevion Henderson in one of my high stakes leagues. Definitely a mistake there, but we can bounce back, of course. Drop Dak for Geno in a 12-man. I think I'd probably be fine with that. Caleb or Herbert. We're heading into the rapid fire segment, by the way, of the live stream. I'm just going to answer as many start sits as I possibly can here down the stretch before we wrap up in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. Yeah, I'm going Herbert over Caleb, not benching Justin Herbert this week. Olave and Swift for Bucky PPR. Yeah, I'm fine with that trade. I'd be totally fine with that. I think that's fair. You're getting the best player in the trade, which is Bucky. Hey, Sam, need a boom play. Javonte, Swift, or Henderson? Yeah, it's Henderson, I think. If you're looking for a boom play, I think it is Henderson. Wandale or Worthy? So, y'all, I'm not starting Worthy. I do not want to start Xavier Worthy here in his first game back. I'm not convinced that he's definitely going to be in like a real role. Roma Dunze or Devontae Adams, there's no benching Roma Dunze right now. I'm playing Roma Dunze over Devontae Adams. Happy Sunday to you as well. And Gerson, May or Jones? Oh, gosh, you got to go Daniel Jones over Drake May. I think Shay talked me into Daniel Jones even more so too. He's pretty high on the Colts. Thinks the Colts can win this game versus the Rams. They are 3.5-point underdogs here versus the Rams, but it has the highest over-under of the week. So yeah, I'm okay going with Daniel Jones in a lot of different spots here in week 4. Pittman, Tet, or Trevion Henderson. Why is Tet ranked so low? Well, he's coming in with an injury he's playing through, but then on top of that, the top corner for the Patriots, Gonzalez, is back in the lineup this week. Christian Gonzalez, who's the Patriots secondary has been horrible, but Gonzalez is one of the best corners in the league. So if he's back and fully healthy and he's on Tet, it's not great news for Tet. I don't think he's ranked that low. He's ranked wide receiver 24, which is above his points per game this season. He's at 31 in points per game. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. I think he is going to be better than this 31st points per game. It's 11.9 points per game, but we haven't projected above his average this season still. So I wouldn't say that he's that low. I would go Pittman here though, for sure, especially with Alec Pierce out. Downs or Imanor? Oh, gosh, I think you go Downs over Imanor. Why is Goff so low? Yeah, Goff gets the Browns. It's a tough matchup here versus the Browns. The Lions are also going to skew really run heavy as well. What's up, Sam? Devin, how we doing? Full PPR, start Mahomes or Caleb? I'm going Mahomes. Yeah, I'm scared to bench Mahomes for sure. Olave or McMillan. Walter has Olave barely. Yeah, I think I would go Olave. PPR, he's a PPR scam, Deb. He's a PPR cheat code. He's second in the NFL in catches per game. So yeah, I think I would go with Olave there. Walter Picks subscriber. Jim, shout out to you, man. Appreciate you doing the Walter Picks app subscription. Seriously, one of the best ways you could possibly support me, could possibly support the entire Walter Picks brand, and could possibly increase your chances of winning your fantasy league the most is by doing the Walter Picks subscription. And it comes with a completely free 7-day free trial, Jim. I don't know why people wouldn't take advantage of that if they're actually trying to win their leagues. I assume you agree, but shout out to you for tuning into the live and for being a Walter Picks subscriber. Seriously do appreciate you, man. Stafford, Prescott, or Purdy. App says Purdy, even with him. Jennings and Pierce all a little banged up. Yeah, this is a close one, man, for sure. And the Stafford is intriguing, knowing that this Colts-Rams game is one of the highest over-unders of the week. I don't think you can start Prescott. I definitely don't feel comfortable with him versus the Packers. And yeah, Purdy's been good, but he's coming off an injury himself. How much will Purdy really run? Coming off the toe injury, like probably not too much. We're not projecting him to run much. He still projects okay, though, versus the Jags. Their secondary has not been great this season, even with Travis Hunter back there. One of the things I feel like getting lost a little bit, too, in all this Travis Hunter narrative, has he even been that good on defense? I feel like he hasn't really shown up, at least on the defensive side of the ball. We saw one game from Purdy. He had 19 points. We're projecting him just under that here in week 4. I'm going Purdy here. I think it's between Purdy and Stafford. Personally, I would not start Prescott in against the Packers. Looking at the matchup tab for the Packers makes me even more concerned for Dak Prescott than where we have him ranked. Only Jaden Daniels was able to be a top 15 QB versus the Packers. This season, Goff only went for 12 points. Flacco had 5 points last week. Do I play Bo or Baker? Yeah, I'm going Bo Nix over Baker there in that TikTok comment. So yeah, Jim, I think I'd lean towards Purdy here, even with some banged up receivers. He still has got the number 1 receiving running back as well. Looks like a touchdown there for the Vikings if he was in. Tough for me to see if he was in there. Chase Brown, BTJ, Ridley, or Juwan Johnson in the flex. Yeah, I'm not starting a tight end in the flex. Even Juwan, who's been really good in a spot like this, I'm playing one of these other players. And it's between Chase Brown and Brian Thomas Jr. here. Man, I think I would go Brian Thomas Jr. over Chase Brown. Personally, panic meter on both these guys is really high. I think Chase Brown probably projects a bit better. Yeah, he does. Oh, man. I think you got to go Chase Brown. I think Brian Thomas, I agree with exactly how the app has it here. Brian Thomas Jr.'s ceiling is higher. Chase Brown's floor is safer. But the ceiling isn't that much different here between the two guys. I'm going Chase Brown here over Brian Thomas Jr. Derrick Henry, Rome Odunze, and Marion Hampton. Packers or Bills? Pick 2. Yeah, you're benching Derrick Henry here. You're playing a Marion Hampton. You're playing Rome Odunze. You're benching Derrick Henry. And then I'm playing the Packers. Every single week I'm playing the Packers. I have the Packers defense in multiple leagues, not benching it, like the whole season. Diggs for Golden, Coleman, or keep Diggs. Diggs for Golden, Coleman, or keep Diggs. I think I would probably do this, yeah. Matt, good to see you back in the live, man. Hope all is well. And Diggs is a tough guy to be very excited about right now. I mean, his role is not growing. I thought his role would be growing after week 1. His role has not been growing. They're rotating in a ton of different receivers. None of these Patriots receivers seemingly have any ceiling. If they're going to rotate the guys this much, he's playing half the snaps. Like, what is the real ceiling for Diggs? There's a real ceiling for Golden and a real ceiling for Coleman that you can talk yourself into. I would trade Diggs probably straight up for like both these guys. And the golden boom week, if it's going to come, it might come this week against the Cowboys. Probably the worst secondary in the NFL. Ladd, Sutton, or Olave PPR. I think I'd rank them in this order. I'm very, very high on Ladd still. I'm very, very high on him this week as well versus the Giants. Ferguson versus Kraft. You can't bench Ferguson. His prop line's at 6.5 receptions. And Shay and I on the YouTube live, we were just talking about why we like the over on Jake Ferguson's receptions line. He had 13 catches last week, or 12 catches on 13 targets, something along those lines. Goff or Dart, and why? Yeah, I'm going Dart. The first Dart question I've seen, but we have Dart ranked really high in the Walter Picks app right now. It's because he runs. His prop line's at 35.5 rushing yards. He's going to be playing from behind against the Chargers. The Chargers defense has been pretty good this season, but they're allowing the second most rushing yards per game to quarterbacks. Bo Nix had 33, Pat Mahomes had 57, Geno had 20 rushing yards versus the Chargers. So yeah, Jackson Dart's rushing ability, good chance to score a rushing touchdown, good chance to go over 35 rushing yards. That makes him in the top 15 QB conversation. He looked great in the preseason too. I think Jackson Dart's going to be very, very good for fantasy at a minimum, and probably good just in general. Fields or May? Yeah, we talked about this one earlier too. Fields is a really, I think you got to play Fields over May. It's really close, but May's like sneakily in a bad matchup. The Panthers have allowed the fewest points per game to quarterbacks this season, or the second fewest points per game to quarterbacks this season, depending on how you're slicing it with the backup QB situations. But yeah, Kyler Murray's the peak points against the Panthers for quarterbacks this season has been 15 from Kyler. Penix had 6. Trevor Lawrence had 11. I think Drake May will probably be near the top side of this, but I don't think there's like a huge ceiling for Drake May versus the Panthers with how their secondary is played. And the Dolphins defense has been horrible. So yeah, I'm going Justin Fields over Drake May. YouTube Live, guys. That is my time this week on the YouTube Live. We started a little early here because we're on Ireland time. Let you guys go and watch the ending of this game. If I didn't get to your start sit, the Walter Picks app is here to help. I've spent the last 5 years of my life helping build this app. It's going to help you with the start sit questions, I promise. If you want additional help beyond the start sit tool in the Walter Picks app, go to the Discord. The Walter Picks Discord is one of the best places for very detailed and sharp analysis from others, including myself. I'll be in the Discord later today before the games kick off as well. If you want your start sit answers, you can go there. The link is in the YouTube description. Guys, time, it's the most valuable thing we have. Thanks for spending some time with me today. As a recap, really quick, my 2 favorite player props today is Luther Burden over 12.5 receiving yards and Quinshon Judkins over 55.5 rushing yards. Those are the 2 official props of the day, but I'm going to start keeping track of my favorite prop in each game as well. And then the DraftKings lineup, I'll pull that up on screen really quick here. Also, I feel pretty good about the DK lineup this week, going with the 2 rookies at running back, going 4 receivers. I'm doing the Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith stack, bringing it back with a Emeka Egbuka, playing Brock Bowers, paying up for Bowers. I think he could really break the slate today. Drake London, Jacoby Myers, feel really good about both those guys. 2, if I were to change something, maybe not stacking Bowers and Myers in the same game, probably subbing out Myers would make some sense here. And then I'm playing the Falcons defense versus Mariota. That's my time, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back live on Sunday. Have a good Sunday, everybody.